Gene Battaglia.
What would be like some of the bigger storylines for camp that maybe we haven't asked you yet? Whether that be the offensive line or, hey, who's going to be your strong safety and your free safety here? There's a lot of questions here.
Dan Hurley officially has that new contract at UConn after flirting with the Lakers earlier this summer.
Sucker! We both saw the Savannah Bananas this weekend.
Yes.
And I was surprised how much I enjoyed it.
Consta Elanius has signed his 3-year entry-level contract.
We did not mention Savoy and Ryan McLeod.
Yes, we're back from vacation. It's good to be back.
It is the 8th, but
What does the world look like on July 8th?
What? Yeah, right.
95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester.
Hey, we welcome you on into Rochester's only local sports talk show. You found the sports bar, Danger and Battaglia. Thanks for tuning in at 95.7 FM, AM 950. The free-to-download Odyssey app, our video stream. You can watch the sports bar on our YouTube channel or on Twitch, and also on your smart device when you ask it to play 95.7 The Fan. Let's just keep expectations low today. Okay, we're returning from vacation. We got to kick the rust off a little bit. Gino's got the savage tan. I think your time well spent at Cape Cod with the family. I certainly enjoyed some downtime as well. We're ready to get back after it here in the sports bar.
Yeah. How you doing, bud? Like I'm on the beach. Did you ever have like this experience where you see somebody be like that is that like a celebrity that I know? Is that actually somebody? Now I'm not talking about there were celebrities around in Cape Cod when I was out there. For instance, in Chatham, you had this.
Yes. Is there a more wealthy sounding town than the town of Chatham, Massachusetts?
Well, that's not where I was.
Oh.
And that's where there was a wedding, apparently, where both the Crafts, remember Robert Kraft got remarried to some doctor, and Tom Brady actually flew in. No, I was not talking about that. Not talking about Nantucket Danger, where that's where the former head coach of the New England Patriots and his 24-year-old girlfriend happened to be residing.
You didn't run into them at all. They weren't there. No Belichick sightings.
No Belichick sightings, but I'm in Yarmouth, and there is a woman walking on the beach, and I'm thinking, hey, she looks a lot like Maggie Gray, but I'm not going to go up to her because I figure, like, I'm in Massachusetts. There's probably, like, thousands of women that look like Maggie Gray. Not going to bother. And then, lo and behold, I get back, and I see she's tweeting about her fun vacation in Cape Cod and all the wonderful things
God
she
bless
did.
you.
Yeah.
I would not be able to pick up Maggie Gray out of a crowd, and you were able to pick her out while vacation.
Well, no, I did, but I'm second guessing myself because
and then you got confirmation.
Right, because then this is not Maggie Gray, all with the hair and the makeup and everything that you're used to seeing on the CBS Sports Network, formerly now in the Infinity Sports Network. No, that wasn't her, but I sure enough it was her. But that was one of many stories. Danger had a great week. How are you today?
I'm well rested. I mean, you were off the grid, and I love that for you. And that's like everybody. You work harder than most people. Most people that I know. In fact,
that is not true. We all work hard.
Well,
in this business,
yes, but I think you have another gear. And for you to be able to be off the grid for a week, unplug, unwind, I know how good that is for one's soul. I didn't entirely unplug. I mean, I was still working. We didn't do the show, obviously, so I wasn't coming in every afternoon, and I apologize. But, I mean, you would have gotten tired of me talking about what's going on with the Euros and Copa, because that was really that and some baseball, the extent of my sports viewing over the course of the last, 8-9 days that we were gone. Well, let's just go ahead and call it 9 days that we were gone from the sports bar.
9 times.
Whatever the case, the world does look a little bit differently. I mean, I'm thinking back to our last show before we broke, and the breaking story was the NFL taking their biggest loss ever. And what has happened since then? Has anybody said anything about it or talked about it since then? Like, that's the one story that was massive as we were leaving, and the one story that feels like nobody is talking about.
Right. And I would have thought at least YouTube would have said, hey, you're still fine if you subscribe to the Sunday NFL Ticket with us and you enjoy getting these services, or they would say it's going to look a little different. You know why they're not saying anything? Because I don't even think they know how to react in a situation like this. They are probably talking to their lawyers thinking, oh my gosh, we don't want to be a part of whatever's coming down the pike next. Or can we get out of this deal with the NFL? The NFL, last we heard, they're appealing. That was it. So this came down in the middle of our show. That would have been the last show we did, the Thursday leading into the 4th. And I kind of joked that, hey, you're a jury and you're looking at a holiday week coming up.
Let's get it done. Yeah.
Let's get it done. Like, that is not the time I would want to think if I'm a lawyer and I want to get a good verdict here. And maybe that's part of the appeal, that the jury, they didn't exactly take their time going over it. I don't know if that is a good basis for an appeal, but, like, has there been a big story? We did have that defensive back that was killed.
Yeah, Kyrie Jackson.
Yeah.
I mean, I was trying to think in the NFL, what are the big stories? What's going on right now? And Kyrie Jackson dying in a car wreck with 2 of his high school teammates. That's a devastating blow for the Minnesota Vikings and certainly for the NFL. It's the offseason, and these are the kind of stories that you hate to hear about during the offseason when the guys aren't tied to their teams. They're not at the team facility. They're not occupying themselves with working out and getting their nose in the playbook.
Yeah. Well, I think it's important to point out that it was actually another car, allegedly with a drunk driver, that hit, and 3 people were killed there. But some people are questioning the hour of the night when you're driving around. I don't think that's a crime to be driving around late at night. So certainly that, I feel terrible for Kyrie Jackson, they're a Viking fan, and certainly the 2 other men that lost their lives in that accident. And you just hope there's nothing else here before training camp's open.
And I think aside from that, the biggest bit of Bills news is this true that fans are actually starting to convene and become spectators around the construction site of the new stadium, that the new stadium is like a tourist attraction? It's drawing spectators, that people are just going by the new hole in the ground?
Sure, of course. Like, this is not Buffalo unique. I mean, any stadium that around, I mean, I'm sure that when years ago Frontier Field was being built, that people just kind of drive by and check out the progress.
Well, that's one thing. I mean, like, you would have to kind of go out of your way if you're, well, I suppose it depends on where you live, right? Or what part of Buffalo you're from. But the idea that it's drawing spectators, and, that's a headline on Pro Football Talk. Like, well, okay, well, that's progress, I suppose.
Yeah, what's the other Bill story? Dawson Knox got married. I saw that, and there he was dancing along with Josh Allen and Deion Dawkins. I mean, it's good that those guys are tight.
Yeah, little off-season bonding for the boys. The other, and look, man, if you're new to the show, we talk a lot of hockey on this show. I love hockey. I played it as a kid, grew up playing it. Gino, your son played hockey growing up. You were a hockey dad for a while.
We're still announcing hockey. We
are proud home of the Rochester Americans. All that being said, like, we went in to the NHL draft. The last day that we were on the air was the night of round 1 of the NHL draft, and we're like, all right, what does this look like? We knew the Sabres had made a trade with San Jose.
Can I stop right there?
Yeah.
I think the NHL actually did something that the NFL wishes they had done. The Sphere.
It's pretty cool.
Like, that was pretty cool, and I would not. Sometimes going back to the same place twice, diminishing returns. No. I would keep that as the venue. That felt special, unique. Michael Buffer, Celine Dion announcing a pick.
Celine Dion announcing a pick actually made me laugh because she did it with drama. She added her own drama.
Like the pregnant pause.
Yes. And and it was the Canadians. Of course, it was Montreal that had Celine Dion, who has a residency in Vegas, I guess, announcing the pick. I'm like, okay, who's announcing the pick for I mean, it's not new. Like, NFL teams do that all the time, right? They get their, when Kyle Brandt made the selection for the Bills a couple of years ago when he pulled out the chicken wing out of his jacket. I mean, like, they're taking a page out of the NFL, and I give the NHL credit for at least trying to make the NHL draft a show, something that we would want to watch. That said, it was cool. I'll give them credit for doing it at the Sphere and being the first to do it at the Sphere, but it was still hard, man. It was hard to watch because these are kids, and you don't know who's going to pan out and who's going to be anything.
Friday night in summer.
Yeah.
Like, are you really like sitting down and are you really invested in this player you've never heard of against that player you've never heard of?
So I hesitate to say we're going to talk a lot of Sabres this afternoon, but I think that's the biggest thing that's changed since our last show is this Buffalo Sabres roster. It's a different roster now than it was 9-10 days ago.
Well, and again, you and I talk a lot about what direction we should take the show sometimes, and we're very mindful. Every time I go and see Mo, no one cares about hockey, Gene. I'm like, no, there are people that love it and people that don't. But here's what I'm going to say to the people that don't love it, and I'm going to pull the lens out wider. Sabres didn't spend any money. Sabres, with the opportunity to upgrade the roster for a team that needs to make the postseason, that needs to get a fan base excited. And yes, free agency can sometimes be fool's gold, but the big trade never really happened. And yes, there were other trades and other movement, but nothing that's going to get you, the Sabre fan, excited. It just leads me to point to the arrow here, the arrow pointing that we're in a belt-tightening mode here. Okay, that Terry Pagula, and it's been widely reported, trying to sell a piece of the Buffalo Bills, trying to sell the Rochester Nighthawks. Well, if he's trying to do those two things, then why would he spend money on his hockey team when you could pocket some of it? So that's why I think it's important that, hey, I really don't care about the Sabres, I only care about the Bills. Is any of that going to trickle over to the football team?
I think you could look at the Bills roster this year and say, like, yeah, maybe it has a little bit. That they're I'll say this. I think that I think they are far more aware of what they're spending and whether or not they're getting a return on that investment when it comes to the player. It was very clear in the second half of last year's NFL season that Stephon Diggs wasn't producing to the level of his compensation. Therefore, you can move on from Stephon Diggs. I also think specifically with the Sabres have a problem. Nobody wants to play for the Sabres. So when you're talking about free agents and you hear Kevin Adams say things like, if they don't want to be a part of our organization, the conversation ends there. Like imagine having the initial conversation with Steven Stamkos. Hey, we've got money and it's green. You interested? No. I'm going to Nashville instead. Not that the Sabres were ever in on Stamkos, but I hope you understand what I'm saying here. I just think the majority of guys that are out there, that Buffalo's hockey team is so tarnished at this point that it's a hard sell to get them to come and be a part of this organization. Now, maybe Lindy Ruff changes all of that. Maybe. We'll discuss the moves that have been made by the Buffalo Sabres here during the draft, post-draft, what it might mean in some of these prospects. We've got a couple of our favorite hockey guys joining us throughout the course of the afternoon here in the 4 o'clock hour. Steve Kornianos, the draft analyst, will tell us just how the Sabres fared in the NHL draft.
Yeah, as the first-round pick, Konstas Helenius is signed today, actually. 3-year entry-level contract. And most think he's going to be headed to Rochester, which, my gosh, the Sabres roster, like, if none of these guys break through, like that's what I would say. From an Amherst standpoint, even though Savoy is not going to be here, obviously he's going to be with the Edmonton organization now. Yeah, that's exciting. So we'll get the thoughts of what the Sabres did in this draft from a draft expert, and there are few better than Steve Kornianos, the draft analyst. He'll be joining us in the 4 o'clock hour.
We'll also be joined here in about 10 minutes or so from Joe Yurden, Bleacher Report, and the Maintenance Day podcast. Just did one with Lance Lysowski, I want to say in the last 24, 48 hours or so. Good hour talking about what the Sabres roster could look like here. And we can get a little bit deeper with Joe when he joins us and talk about what this Amerks roster might look like now with development camp in the rearview mirror. But yeah, the first round draft pick has a choice to make. Does he want to go back to Finland and play for the best team in that league, or does he want to come and play in North America? And if he plays in North America, is Helenius going to be all right with spending some time with the Rochester Americans? That's a tough one. I'm not sure. he might stay in Finland if he has a belief that he's not going to make the Sabres. And when you look at the roster and the moves that have been made, I think there's a very good chance he doesn't make the Sabres as a rookie.
I also want Joe to explain to me, like I'm 5 years old, why Matthew Savoy. Okay, we're done with you. We're bringing in Ryan McLeod, who is basically your third-line center. Okay. Now, some are saying the Sabres actually may have won this trade. Here would be my theory on this, Danger, is that you have all these prospects, and we were talking how the Sabres were going to deal one of them, and that shouldn't have been, but we were expecting something bigger, right? Well, I think that the reason why Savoy was the one that got tapped, he's the most mysterious one. Scouts have seen Kulik. They know he needs to work on his defense. They've seen Roseanne. Like, Savoy seems like he has the most upside, in my opinion. So maybe that's why he was the one to go.
You could tell me that the Sabres opening night roster will not include a single Rochester American from last year, save for Devin Levi, and I would listen to that. That they've got enough now where they don't need to rush up Kulik or Roseanne, that they could leave these guys in Rochester a little bit longer, and that some of these guys are going to have a hard time cracking through and making that opening night roster for the Sabres. You know, the addition of Jason Zucker, Beck Malenstein, McLeod, who you mentioned, Sam Lafferty, Abe Kubel. I mean, like, their bottom six is almost entirely turned over, and you're hoping that the kids step up. Quinn, Benson, Peterka, they're all getting top six roles. And if you look at this roster the way it could be constructed when they break camp and head into the regular season, it'll be interesting to watch. I would also listen to the argument that their bottom six is better now than it was last year at this time. I would listen to that, but there's a lot of unknowns there with players that we're just not as familiar with. And maybe Lindy Ruff, has the key to unlocking a little bit more. If the goal is we want guys who are going to make it harder to play against us, I think they've done at least that. I don't know who's going to score, but they've done at least that.
Well, it's funny because Lindy Ruff's second year here in Buffalo, I'm going way, way back because that was the year they made the Cup final. And you had Michael Pekka, but you had other guys like Dixon Ward and Brian Holzinger, just guys, like borderline AHL guys. And somehow with, another world goaltender, they made the Cup final, which is nuts to think about that. Well, is Lindy Ruff kind of nudging Kevin Adams in that direction? Or, I go back to my original point, was the budget all really there? Like, we want to think that this team was in on Stamkos, and maybe, hey, we want to just kind of throw out there that maybe, just throw out the uncertainty that maybe they didn't want to be here, or were you really, really going to open up the wallet?
Yeah. Well, fascinating moves made, and we'll break it down with a couple of our favorites, with Joe Yurden joining us here in a couple few, and Corniano's going to join us in the 4 o'clock hour. We'll talk about the Sabres draft. We'll look around the NHL as well. I was excited because the Sabres actually signed Colton Pullman. Now, why is that exciting?
I don't know.
He played his high school hockey at my high school.
Oh.
So I'm not the only East Greaser that you could see in Rochester this fall. That's assuming Pullman is playing for the Amherst, which feels like when you look at this roster, that's probably where he's headed. But you'll have a little bit of depth there with that Pullman signing. The pride of East Grand Forks, Minnesota.
Are you into the Wimbledon here we're watching this afternoon? No.
Wimbledon, huh?
Not betting on Wimbledon?
No, I'm not. No, it's not going to be about my bankroll is baseball does it to me again, Gino.
Yeah.
July was not kind to your boy. I'm sorry, June was not kind to your boy. The beginning of July hasn't been kind either. But yeah, baseball is... There's a lot of, let's just put it this way, there's a lot of variance. If you're a Yankee fan, I'm speaking to you right now. You understand the amount of variance that goes in baseball because in the last 15-plus days, you saw your team go from the best in the bigs to one of the worst in the bigs.
But then you have a blip where you put up 17 runs and Ben Rice hits 3 homers. Like,
pretty cool.
Yeah.
And last night, you don't win the series against the Red Sox. You probably leave Heel out there a little bit longer than you needed to. and it costs you. And it feels like a team that's lacking confidence, that they have to get their swagger back and hopefully get it back soon here if you want to make a run here in the second half. But
since we were gone, they got swept at home by Cincinnati.
Yeah.
I know Cincinnati's this fun team, and they're not the bad old Reds of yesteryear, but come on, what are we doing?
No, ugly. Completely ugly. Haven't won a series in a long time, and you see just a lack of confidence. Maybe they get it turned around. Maybe the All-Star break is exactly what they need. Aaron Boone. I mean, I think losing this series to the Red Sox, I think you got to put Boone back on the hot seat, right?
No.
You have to kind of consider, like, what is going on with this team and its leadership. I mean, I put it on Judge as well. You're the captain of this team. If the team is lacking confidence, something's up. Step up. What are we doing?
Well, Judge is bringing in his own batting coach. That's unusual. And, Aaron Boone, after Trent Grisham lollygagged that one play, and that would have been a play where you could have set the tone, pulled him right out of center field like Billy Martin back in the day. No, you're just kind of making excuses afterward. I think Yankee fans are tired of Aaron Boone and all his Booneisms. I would make the change. I would set the tone.
I don't think they're going to.
No,
but
they won't.
It would make sense. I would understand it. It would be kind of crazy, but I would understand it because it feels like, well, it feels like more of the same if you're a Yankee fan. And the little blip that you had here to start the season with a team that gets to 50 wins faster than any other team in the bigs, that feels like a distant memory. So it's these extremes that you're going through as a Yankee fan, the extreme highs and the extreme lows. We got to get to Joe Yerdon, writing for the NHL Bleacher Report. Also, the Maintenance Day pod with our buddy Lance Lysowski. We'll get into the Sabres and this new roster that they've constructed for themselves through the draft and through a series of trades and acquisitions. Joe Yerdon next on The Fan Rochester.
Have signed their first-round pick, Konstas Helenius, to a 3-year entry-level contract. We'll get the thoughts of Joe Urian, Bleacher Report, next. Brian Duff offering his thoughts.
Konstas Helenius has signed his 3-year entry-level contract.
This is wonderful because the kids that presumably will be in Rochester, that he could well start here in North America this year.
Along with Marty Baron today. Rochester Red Wings back on the diamond tomorrow night. They open a series in Worcester, Massachusetts. Mitch Keller, the Pittsburgh Pirates, picking up win number 10 on the season. Pirates over the Mets 8-2. Nationals taking on the Cardinals at 4 o'clock today. The Yankees are off tonight. They begin a series at Tampa Bay tomorrow night. Gene Battaglia, the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan, Rochester.
They've raised the bar on Rochester Sports Talk. You're in the Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia on the Sports Leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester.
All right, a lot has changed with the Buffalo Sabres since last we spoke, so to get us caught up, we bring in Joe Urian, our favorite noted jerk, noted hockey Bleacher Report, the Maintenance Day podcast with Lance Lysowski, where I believe you guys did over an hour of good pod here in the last 48 hours or so. Joe, thank you again for making time for us here in the Sports Bar. And out of all of the moves made, out of all of the draft picks, out of everything that's done with the Buffalo Sabres, can we say today that this team is in better shape than it was last year at this time?
You know, it's so weird because it's going to sound bad for me to say this, but I don't know. There are parts of this that I really like. I really like what they've done to remake the bottom six. I love the additions of Lafferty. I like the addition of Ryan McLeod. And I think Nicholas Aube-Kubel is a fantastic addition for defensive purposes. But the top six hasn't gotten the attention yet. And that's a little bit distressing because I think they're relying on everybody to have a bounce back year and for Lindy Ruff and Seth Appert to have a huge effect on changing things around for the forward group. So I do like a lot of it, but there's that big but in the way where I'm not, I don't feel like they're done yet. I think that's my main thing. I don't think they're totally finished yet here.
Yeah, I mean, we all have that, but do they really have the green light to spend here? And where I'm going with this, Joe, is that it's already been reported that Terry Pegula looking to divest maybe roughly 25% of the Buffalo Bills, and the Rochester Nighthawks are on the block. It seems like this, on the sports side for Terry Pegula, we're in a sell now, belt tightening kind of mode here, and if that is the case, bumping up the payroll for the Buffalo Sabres, does that seem out of the question?
Well, I mean, the Sabres have been kind of in a belt-tightening mode since Kevin Adams took over, really. Basically since 2020, they've been cutting down the payroll because, Jason Botterill ran the payroll like right to the brim and even over it for a little bit, spending into the LTIR payments and whatnot, and that didn't turn results. That didn't, they didn't make the playoffs. They weren't very good. So they cut back on a lot of those costs. And I know people were talking about like there's an internal cap and, all that. And that to me is just, it's budgeting, but they've invested in the guys that they believe in, the guys that they've drafted and acquired, as young players. But when it comes to free agency and things like that, that's an area that's burned them a lot since Terry took over the team in 2011. And he learned that hard lesson right away with Ville Leno and, Christian Ehrhoff to a lesser degree and, some of those guys beforehand. And, even with Kyle Oposo, who was still very good, but, things didn't go the way that they had planned there for the team or the player. But I mean, investing in free agency is not a great idea, especially when the market is really top heavy, and they weren't going to be in the market for those guys. Like that just wasn't going to happen. But I understand being nervous about it because there are some areas where it's like, okay, well, you could, maybe you can add a guy here or there via trade. And if they're saying like, well, we don't want to pay that, then that's a problem. But I don't know that that's been the case quite yet. If anything, the price payment for why they haven't why they haven't made any huge trades is that the cost is, cleaning out basically Rochester from all the top prospects and getting rid of lots of picks to make it happen. So, if there's a worry I have here, it's that they bought out Jeff Skinner and they haven't really put that $7 million to use unless you consider Jason Zucker to be the investment there, which I have a feeling a lot of people aren't going to necessarily agree with.
Yeah. And Joe, there's another part to this too, and it kind of goes hand in hand with what Gene is asking about. I'm wondering, do players, free agents in the NHL, does Buffalo has to have this stench upon it where you're a team that has missed the postseason, you have the longest drought in the league. Do players not want to come to Buffalo? And I think Kevin Adams was talking about how if that's the case, then the conversation is over. He's not going to pursue anybody that makes it known that they want no part of the Sabres.
Well, I think Kevin's saying that right now. I mean, that's a bit of a pride point on his part, saying that, because he wants players to be able to look at what they've got player wise and now coach wise and say, all right, I believe it. I think this is going to get turned around. But the last 10 plus years of history says, show me, essentially, for any player that that might veto a trade or might not want to sign here. The proof is in what you do on the ice. And for any player that's maybe looking at this, they can look at the situation and say, well, it might be fun. It might be fun to play with Tage Thompson and Alex Tuch and Dylan Cuz, all these guys, and Rasmus Dahlin, all of them. Like, there'd be a ton of fun to play with them. But they've gone through a different head coach every 2 to 3 years. Kevin Adams' tenure as GM is the longest, I think since either Murray or maybe even Darcy Regier at this point. Like 4 years sounds crazy to be a long time, but I think we're at that point right now. That's a lot of turnover. That is a lot of change and not a lot of winning. And I totally get it if a player's like, well, if you guys start winning, then come call me or I'll call you. Like, either way. But to just kind of cut off that conversation and just say, well, if you don't want to come here, fine, whatever, we're walking away. Like, I don't know. Sometimes you got to finesse that a little bit to get the guy that you want. But if a guy's going to come in here and just be like, well, as soon as it starts to stink here, I'm going to ask for a trade and get out of here, I can understand maybe not wanting a guy that might have that perspective on hockey life.
Joe, you're in Bleacher Report, also the Maintenance Day podcast, noted hockey, our guest here in the Sports Bar, one of our friends here. As Joe, last time we had you on, as we're kind of projecting, okay, here's what the Sabres could do. Maybe they go get a veteran. Will they trade one of their prospects? And it's funny. We were thinking Kulig. We're thinking Rosén. Wait a second. They moved Savoy for McLeod. And I'll just ask you the question straight out. What did you think of the trade?
You know what? I don't hate it. McLeod is good. McLeod's a very good player. It's just he's not a big goal scorer. He's not a big hit guy, but he's fast. He's a tremendous possession player. He's a fancy stats darling, honestly. He does all those things that might not get recognized in the flow of play, but then you go back and go, I think that guy had a good game. Then you go back and look at the numbers. You go, yeah, no, he had a really good game. Okay, all right, my eyes don't deceive me here, but. He's able to push play back into the other team's end of the ice by defending, by owning the puck, by helping create scoring chances for the lines that he's on. And he was able to do all of that, not playing with Connor McDavid, not playing with Leon Draisaitl or Ryan Nugent-Hopkins. He was kind of running a line on his own and was able to generate some really great possession numbers, expected goal numbers, all that stuff people tend to turn their brain off when they hear about it. But he's a really good player when it comes down to those to those kinds of things. And the way they seem to be building up the bottom six, it seems they want to have a third and fourth line that are both going to hit you and they're going to drive you crazy by forechecking you, deep into your own zone and making you turn over the puck.
Yeah.
Sounds good to me. Sign me up.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like that's been the drumbeat all offseason with this team is that, if the Sabres are going to be, aside from, of course, accountability, that's what we heard at Locker Cleanout Day, but now it seems like it's about we've got to be a team that other teams are miserable to play against. They don't want to play against us because we're going to make life a challenge for them. So tell us a little bit about this overhaul of the bottom six. We touched on McLeod, but what about Zucker? What about Mallenstein and Lafferty and Aube-Kubel? I mean, like you can look at the roster as it's projected to look right now and say, like, wow, is Jordan Greenway the only guy that remains in that bottom six from last year's opening night?
Yeah, he is, and part of me wonders if he's still going to be here for opening night this year. It's just. The way he plays, he's a tremendous penalty killer, very big, big forward. I do wonder if he's going to be able to keep up at the pace that guys like McLeod, and if Zucker plays on that line. Those are two fast guys, and Greenway, for all the good that he does, isn't too fast of a skater. Which hey, whatever. Everybody's got a good role, but like that, the fourth line, the way it's set up right now, with Lafferty, with Mallenstein, and with Aube-Kubel. Amherst fans saw enough of Mallenstein a couple of years ago in the AHL playoffs, and he was a menace. He hit everything in sight. Just a truck of a guy. And, Lafferty's become a really solid bottom six player in the NHL, just, really good defensively. And Aube-Kubel excels defensively. He's one of the better defenders on the puck and on the ice when he's out there. Doesn't get a lot of hype because, he doesn't score a lot at all. And he plays fourth line minutes. So you're not really going to notice him, but in specialized usage, like penalty kills and, ozone draws and whatnot, like guy's really good. So like that, if that's your fourth line, I really like it. And if you have, if Peyton Krebs becomes a fourth line center, if he's still here, then you can kind of play around with things and figure out, maybe it's Lafferty and for Mallenstein, do your matchups based on who your opponent is. But it's a really interesting group. It's a good group. It's just, when you're looking to celebrate things and kind of brag about the off season, do that, bragging about loading up and making your third and fourth lines really good doesn't really register for a lot of people. They want the big name. They want the scorer, and they haven't added that yet. They might not, but certainly dealing Matt Savoy away looks tough because, number 9 pick 2 years ago, had a huge season this year in junior. All that stuff was on the WHL champions. I get it from the outside, people that don't watch a lot of junior hockey or haven't watched Matt Savoy a lot or any of that, think like, wow, the Sabres took a bath on this trade. I have a good feeling the Sabres kind of know what they're getting into with this, just because they're solving a problem now and they're moving a prospect, which they have a ton of, and a guy that they didn't really see a spot for in the future here.
Well, how many guys get spots next year? And I'm gonna take Danger's point from earlier and ask it in the form of a question here, because when you look at the Amherst from last year, guys that will start this season up in Buffalo, well, obviously it's Devin Levi. Anyone else, Joe? What are the chances are that we could be really, really stocked in Rochester next season?
Well, I think you're going to be really stocked no matter what. Because I think the one guy you might miss out on is Yuri Kulik. It shouldn't be a huge surprise, I think, to anybody. But I think if anybody jumps up to Buffalo, I think it would be him. Just because he's had the NHL build since he was drafted when he was 18. He was NHL sized already. It was just a matter of getting the two-way play right, the consistency right. Vinny Prospero talked to us during Dev Camp this week, and he said consistency is the main thing for him. If he can play the best way he does in one game and play that continuously, like throughout a schedule, he'll be a very good NHL player. And that's, I think you guys could agree. It's been kind of that way in Rochester, where he's great for long stretches, and then there's a few games where it's like, okay, he hasn't done much. Like, what's going on there? But I think if there's a guy that's going to jump, it's going to be him. But I think you guys are okay, because I think Consta Helenius is going to be in Rochester next season anyway. So it's going to be a very young group, but it's a lot of talent. Like Noah Ostlund, Hellenius. I think Roseanne's a maybe guy for Buffalo, but you're gonna have a ton. There's gonna be a ton of really fun players down there.
I want to talk a little bit more about Hellenius. Tell us a little bit about the first round pick, and we know that there's probably a choice for him, right? I mean, like, they want to get him in North America right away, but if he believes that he's not making the team and decides, I don't really want to play for the Amherst, he could go back to Finland. Isn't that correct, Joe?
He can. Yeah, he can absolutely go back to Finland. I think what gives him an edge to play over here, apart from needing to, get used to playing on American, North American ice, he played big minutes as a 17-year-old in Liga, which, that's the pro league in Finland. That's the top league in Finland. And he wasn't playing like Roseanne minutes in Sweden where he was playing fourth line, getting, 8, 9, 10 minutes a game. It's a guy who's playing 16, 17 minutes a game, 18 minutes a game playing center. His coach was Olli Jokinen in Finland. Like, this is a guy who, if of anybody that you've drafted out of Europe, because, a lot of guys that play on the big teams, they just don't get the minutes because there's veterans, there's older guys. They're, you're not usually given the, big minutes to younger guys like that, but he's gotten them and he's competed very well and he's done well over there. So I think there's a very strong possibility that he comes to North America. He plays for Rochester. There's the outside shot. Maybe he makes Buffalo, but I just don't see it. But because I don't think Lindy wants to have a ton of really young guys to deal with in Buffalo. But I think if you put him in Roch, give him time, give him a month, give him 2 months, the same amount of time we've given all these guys that came over, that played in Rochester that first year. Give him some time to get acclimated, and then watch how things unfold with him. Because this is a guy that's it's a tired cliche at this point, and I kind of roll my eyes even thinking it now that I'm going to say it. This guy's got kind of that dog in him, like he's a hard competitive player. He's extremely confident. And we saw some of his handles here in development camp this week, the 3-on-3 tournament, all that stuff. You get a really good idea of like kind of what this guy's about. Really anxious to see what he looks like in training camp, provided he's here. Because there's a good chance he's going to play a lot of games over on, at least on this side of the ocean in preseason for the Sabres, because I think they want to get a really nice long look at him before they decide if he goes to Rochester or goes back to Finland.
Joe, I'm going to ask you a question that we have asked year after year. Let me dust this off. Okay. If the Sabres are going to make the postseason this year, that means one team that made the postseason last year can't make it this year, the coming year. Might that team be Tampa Bay? Maybe.
There's three of the teams in the Atlantic Division are, I call them zombie teams, because you keep waiting for them to die and you keep waiting for them to fall off, and you need to double tap them. It's the old, it's the old zombie land thing. You got to double tap them, and nobody's double tapped Tampa. Nobody's double tapped Boston. Like, all these teams you keep expecting, like, well, they got to come back at some point, right? And Tampa's like losing Stamkos, like, that's a gut shot, just for like the room. I think that's a tough gut shot for him. But like, they've got the other talent. I think adding Gensel's is a good piece of business for him. Losing Sergachev is tough, though. Because Victor Hedman, he just gets a 4-year extension. He's not young. He's 33, 34 years old, whatever he is now. He's not a young dude. And Sergachev was supposed to be like the next guy in line there. And, it's not going to be the case. But, they got a nice defenseman from Utah, and JJ Moser. I think he's very underappreciated. But he's not Mikhail Sergachev. So it's going to be really interesting with them. But if you're going to circle one that maybe comes back to earth more, Tampa's not a bad bet, because we don't know what they look like. We kind of have an idea what they look like without Stamkos. He's been injured enough, but it's a much different team without him and without Sergachev. It's not as deep as they used to be.
Joe, some other housekeeping items that have kind of slipped through the cracks here. Salary arbitration for UPL and for Beck Malenstein. What can you tell us about that? What's next in that process?
Malenstein, I wouldn't sweat that out just because he's brand new. I just got him at the draft. Probably not a lot of time to talk contract stuff, so that's That's fine. Luukkonen's is going to be really interesting. Arbitration is good because at least you know when a guy's going to get signed by. They can't be offer sheeted. They can't be any of that stuff. But at least arbitration sets a date so that the guy's going to be signed at least by this date. You just hope that it's not a difficult negotiation. Like, the best thing for Luukkonen and for the Sabres is to get it figured out before it goes to a hearing. Because if it goes to a hearing, things can get nasty, and that's when the conversations get a little ugly. The trust kind of erodes on both sides of business, and I don't think you want to be doing that. I certainly don't think the Sabres want to be doing that with a guy that they're saying is their number one goalie, and I definitely don't think Luukkonen wants to have this hanging over him, having some kind of bad feelings going into camp when it comes down to all this, because he's got to be ready to compete with Levi. Got to be ready to be a number one goalie because, Lindy's got to trust him as one, and, just get it done. Like, if you got to do a 3-year, $15 million deal, fine. He's your number one goalie. Treat him like one. If you're worried about what it's going to cost to keep Levi when he's RFA, next summer, worry about it then. Let's see what he does. Until then, you're not really paying a ton of money for him either. So, if he's your number one guy, treat him like a number one. Just, maybe don't go 5, 6, 7 years with him. That's all.
Joe, what'd you think of the draft at the Sphere there? I would sign up for that again if they brought it back there.
I'm ready to go back tomorrow. It was such a well done, the setup for it inside, the way it looked, the screen, everything inside of Sphere it defies description, honestly. And seeing it on TV, it looked very cool on TV. Seeing it in person was way cooler. It was just a really awesome setup there. And I know the league said they're decentralizing this. It's going to be NFL-like, but I don't know how committed they are to that after the way Vegas treated it and the way it looked and the way it came off and all of that stuff. It provided the glitz and glam that the NHL never gets for once. And once again, they're the first ones to do something big at a setting like that. NFL and the NBA are going to be right behind them saying hey, look what we did. We got a draft at the Sphere. And, it's going to be cool when they do it. But, NHL did it first, just kind of picking teams for all-star games. They did, NHL did it first and everybody else followed suit. But I think if they go away, I think if they stick with this decentralized idea, it's such a huge letdown. It's so disappointing. I don't say that as a media guy that goes to the event. That's cool. I love that. But, if you're going to take away that kind of showmanship and that kind of, attention for the league, you're just shooting yourself in the foot. I'd say make it permanent to go to Vegas, but 110 degrees at the end of June is not a good time. I'll tell you that much.
With that event just taking place at the Sphere, with Game 7 and the ratings that came in for that, does it feel like the NHL is doing more right than wrong? We've been pretty harsh critics of the league, and it feels like maybe things are turning around for the NHL. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, going back and being teamed up with ESPN is doing a lot to help that. That's for sure. Spiting ESPN for how they handled things after the lockout in 2004 was probably not in their best interests. I'll say that much. Having a hype machine like ESPN behind it helps a ton. Turner's done a great job with it as well on their side of things with the games on TNT and TBS. Both of those networks, they know how to generate attention. They know how to generate hype, and they've done a great job with it. And it's got more eyes on the game, and that's the big thing. You can't just put your league on the DIY network and expect you're going to turn in big ratings. That just ain't going to happen. They did that once before. It didn't work, and they tried to ham-fist it and make it work, and it just didn't. But now it's kind of paying off. Sure helps to have a Game 7 Stanley Cup final game, though. I'll say that much. That's enough to rope anybody in because it's an unbelievable setup to have. It's do or die. It's hockey. Everybody laying on the line. That's exactly what you want to see.
Last one for me, Joe. And by the way, I was a big fan of the Outdoor Life Network, so I don't know what you're talking about. Yeah, Joe, the Sabres schedule actually came out, too, the rest of the NHL, and just get your thoughts on that. I mean, the one thing that jumps out to me is, oh, gosh, February when it's cold and it's dark and I could really use some Sabres hockey. They're off for 2 weeks.
Yeah. Yeah, the Four Nations face-off is going to get all the attention those couple weeks. There'll definitely be some Sabres guys involved with that. I have to imagine Darlene will. To imagine Lukin, it'll be part of it. Maybe a couple, maybe Thompson, maybe Tuck. We'll see what the rest of those rosters look like when they come up with them. But this is going to be weird because it's going to be the first time in years where I don't think there's going to be like a Sabre game on or around my birthday in mid-February. So that's going to be a little strange, but I'll be okay with it, honestly. A day off, cool. On my birthday, even better. That's awesome. But it's a couple weeks off is something, but there's going to be a good number of guys, whether Canadian, U.S., Finn or Swede, that are not going to get a couple weeks off there. They're going to be playing some knockdown, drag-out games against each other in Boston or Montreal for that tournament. That's the kind of the warm-up act for the Olympics to come and future World Cups, hopefully. Because this was supposed to be a World Cup of hockey year, but that for whatever reason they keep getting in their own way about it. So it's tough, but I think we'll survive with that Four Nations face-off because that's going to be a lot of fun.
Joe, tell us about Maintenance Day. We know you and Lance gave up some time here in the last, 24, 48 hours or so to get us all caught up on everything going on around the Buffalo Sabres.
Yeah, we dug into it. We dug into the trade, the Matt Savoy for Ryan McLeod trade, got very much into that and broke down a lot of the offseason moves and what they're looking to do and how they're doing it, and maybe some moves that are still to come. We definitely kicked around some thoughts and some trade ideas there. So you'll want to check it out. It's Maintenance Day. It's on your favorite podcast platform. I also broke down the Savoy McLeod trade on notedhockey.com. Check that out. $5 a month, $50 for a year. It's fun. It supports me. You got to like that. And Bleacher Report, all the NHL stuff you can handle. That's where we're doing all of that stuff there. So yeah, check it out.
Very busy man, churning out some great hockey content. Joe Yerdon, Bleacher Report, Noted Hockey, Maintenance Day podcast. Joe, appreciate the time as always. Thanks so much.
Thanks so much, guys. Appreciate it.
You got it. There he is, Joe Yerdon. And now we're caught up. Now I feel like we're caught up. Now, hearing Joe say he doesn't know, it just adds to the intrigue of what opening night for this team could look like. And I got to tell you, Gino, if they stutter out of the blocks with this revamped roster, this revamped bottom six, any patience that you have left, which might not be much at all, is gone.
If they stumble out of the blocks, nobody will notice because we're in bill season.
Yeah. Well.
I mean, there's also that. If we get to February and we're like, what are we doing here? And by the way, yes, there aren't any games. I don't like that at all. Like, here's this made-for-TV event. All right, maybe I'll like it when it comes around.
Yeah, I'm going to reserve judgment on that one. I see what the NBA did with the play, the in-season tournament, and, for as much as we wanted to kind of, like, take a dump on that, it wasn't bad. It was fun. It was fun.
Was different.
Yeah, it was fun. And I think that I'll reserve judgment. I'm not going to say immediately that that's terrible because, well, in the month of February, you are maybe paying a little bit more attention to hockey, and maybe this is the entryway for you to pay more attention to hockey in its second half down the stretch there after you get to that face-off challenge. So Steve Cornianos, the draft analyst, will be stopping by next hour, and we'll break down some of these picks for the Buffalo Sabres. Eventually, it could be some Rochester Americans that we're looking at here, adding to the Amherst roster. And Leo, new Amherst head coach, getting his run with development camp.
Listen, on vacation, listened to a lot of yacht rock, Danger, and heard the Lido shuffle.
Not the Leo shuffle, the Lido shuffle. A couple of things to get caught up on next here on the Sports Bar. By the way, you can join us anytime at 866-4326. I'm a little distracted. Wimbledon is on over here. I have a Wimbledon take.
Okay, you have a Wimbledon take.
Yeah, I do.
I have an NBA take, and it it's something that I just think that needs to be said at this point. Also, the baseball all-star teams have been announced, and it's that annual time of year where baseball writer, sharpens his pencil and talks about the injustices of the world. And
I'll say this: what was it? 32 first-time all-stars on both teams in this game. I mean, we've been saying it for the last couple of years. Like, the young talent in Major League Baseball is fun and exciting.
Why would you pay for talent when you can just have all this young talent?
It's pretty cool.
Yeah,
it's kind of neat to see some of the young guys stepping up and getting their opportunity here in the All-Star Game. So we'll get into that and more next. Steve Cornianos, the draft analyst, will talk some NHL draft with him in about a half an hour or so as well. And again, 866-4326 if you want to pull up a stool and join us here in the Sports Bar.
You're listening to Rochester and streaming online and in the Odyssey app at The Fan Rochester. The sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan Rochester, an Odyssey sports station. The Fan Rochester Sports Update.
Buffalo Sabres have signed their first-round pick, Konstas Helenius, to a 3-year entry-level contract. There's a good chance he could start next season with the Amherst. Sabres commentator Marty Baron offering his thoughts on the Matt Savoy-Ryan McLeod trade.
But I think for the Sabres, Savoy had probably dropped to third, maybe fourth, maybe even fifth in the way they saw him as in their prospect pool. So making that trade for a third-line center felt like it was the right currency and the right moment to do it.
Rochester Red Wings are off tonight. They begin a series in Worcester, Mass. tomorrow night. Mitch Keller, the Pittsburgh Pirates, picking up win number 10 of the season. One final from this afternoon, the Pirates over the Mets 8-2. The Yankees begin a series tomorrow night at Tampa Bay. Sports is brought to you by GetMyPerks.com. Get half off today to Fairfield's Bar and Grill. Gene Battaglia, the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan Rochester.
The Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia.
USA men's basketball group with Puerto Rico, South Sudan, and Serbia for the Paris games that begin later this month.
The news cycle for the NFL is starting to perk up again.
Mike Danger.
Of course, we're just over 2 weeks away from our Super Bowl, which is Buffalo Bills training camp.
Cannot wait. We'll be out there at Fisher bringing you everything.
Gene Battaglia.
What would be like some of the bigger storylines for camp that maybe we haven't asked you yet? Whether that be the offensive line or, hey, who's going to be your strong safety and your free safety here? There's a lot of questions here.
Dan Hurley officially has that new contract at UConn after flirting with the Lakers earlier this summer.
We both saw the Savannah Bananas this weekend.
Yes.
And I was surprised how much I enjoyed it.
Konstas Helenius has signed his 3-year entry-level contract.
We did not mention Savoy and Ryan McLeod.
Yes, we're back from vacation. It's good to be back.
It is the 8th,
What
but
does the world look like on July 8th?
what? Yeah, right.
95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan Rochester.
My oldest daughter rifled off this doozy at me. 4th of July. We're doing like a lot of people in the town of Greece do. We're gathering to look up at the sky and ooh and ah. It's something we've seen every year for most of our lives. I mean, let's face it. If you've seen one fireworks show, you've seen them all, right? We're watching the fireworks on the 4th of July in my in-laws' backyard. Backs right up to the town hall, and the fireworks are magnificent. As soon as it's over, my daughter drops this on me. As soon as that last firework explodes, it's officially fall. I'm like, ooh, did you just drop a take? Is that a take that you just dropped on the 4th of July? That fall starts when the last firework explodes?
That's taking it a step too far, in my opinion. But I've heard the take from Chris Brown and I've read it from others that summer ends at the 4th of July. I'm like, hold on. No. Do not wish it away.
I'm not wishing it away.
No, what she's saying basically is there aren't any benchmarks on the road between here and the fall. It is not fall. Go outside.
I know it's not fall. I mean, it's the hottest fall I've ever lived in. I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
But it is. You could argue that it's now back to school season. I've heard the back to school ads.
I heard my first one today,
Yep.
and I'm like, oh, okay.
The back to school season has started. And I'm bringing it all up not because I'm trying to wish summer away. I'm enjoying every day of it that we have because God knows we endure enough through the winter months. But we are just over 2 weeks away from the start of Bill's training camp.
That, to me, like in our business, feels like when summer ends because now it's football and we're out there and we're working and you and I are excited. We got a lot of plans here. We're working again to be bringing you the live training camp broadcasts, and this is why we take our time off when we do roll over the 4th of July, just making sure that, okay, now we're ready to go here. Boy, that was a take by your daughter. I would have argued her.
She dropped that one on me. I'm like, pretty strong take. I mean, in her mind, I'm speaking on her behalf, as somebody who I know doesn't enjoy being outside in the heat. She's not big on the heat. She's big on central air. She's very big on central air. She's big on wearing her hoodies 12 months out of the year. She wants to wear the hoodie, and, it's like going outside and complaining about the heat while you're wearing a hoodie is a little bit psychotic, in my opinion. but she wants that. She values the comfort over the season. Not a big summer fan.
No. I before I went on my vacation, our boss Tim here, great guy, right?
Best.
He went on vacation. Where was it? The Dominican. Regardless, somewhere where they had waves. And he decided to body surf, and he separated his shoulder.
I remember that, yeah.
Yeah, and you get to a certain age that, these risks you took when you were in your 20s, maybe you have to overthink it. Which leads me to my story. And I'm not taking any big risks, but I'm on the seashore, and this is the arm portion of Cape Cod where the waves are crashing in, and I'm not body surfing danger. Those days are done.
Uh-huh.
Except I'm just letting the waves crash into me, which is kind of fun, and just kind of jump up. Here they come, just kind of going over the waves.
How's the water, by the way?
In that part, freezing. Okay, that part, like when you're on the ocean.
What's freezing to you? 75? 74?
No, I was like 65.
Oh.
Yeah, no, but 71. It with the sun beating down and you're moving around, that felt really good.
Okay.
I know that's hard to believe.
No, I get it. I go in Lake Ontario this time of year and think, this is cold, but it actually feels pretty good.
I didn't know this could happen, but of course I did. A wave comes in, and I'm ready to jump up. Oh no!
It knocked you backwards.
No, my right leg is not moving like I wanted it to. Like the water underneath had a pin, and all of a sudden I feel the wave going against my knee, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I just tore my knee apart.
Did you hear a pop?
No. I'm like, oh no. Executive producer is going to kill me for being so dumb to get her injured. Just not even really surfing.
You getting injured standing in the ocean would be a pretty epic tale to share with everybody. It wouldn't be one we'd want to shout from the mountaintops. As my co-host Gene, he was famously injured just by setting foot in the ocean.
I'm thinking, oh no, like I've got to drive home if I just tore up my knee, and I go out of there and it's really, really sore. Sore to the point where it's waking you up in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
And it did that a couple nights, and I'm like, oh, this is really not good. But everything's fine now.
You sure?
Yeah, totally sure.
There's no residual pain?
No, nothing.
Tear your meniscus?
No,
or
it didn't. Maybe there was a little tiny, I don't know, but waves can do that. Apparently.
One of the stories that occurred while we were off, and it was hard to ignore because it was everywhere. I don't know if you saw this or not, Gene, but Bronny got drafted by the Lakers, one, and two. Yeah. I mean, he's getting the coverage that nobody in his position should get, but because LeBron has this thing with ESPN, or ESPN has this weird thing with LeBron, I don't know which it is. We've got to be force-fed every move made by a second-round pick who shouldn't have been a second-round pick.
This is that time of year where ESPN has to manufacture stuff. Like one year was LeVar Ball, one year was Aaron Rodgers' watch, and now it's Bronny in the summer league, and he's being hurt. I mean, I think how we're gonna look back at this 10 years, 20 years from now. Like when we're talking about nepotism in sport, or nepotism, this is it. This is going to be like, wait a second, why was this kid in the NBA when clearly he was a borderline college player?
And I know people are going to be like, nepotism has been in sports for a long time. Yeah, it has. The problem is Bronny's not that good.
Well, you could say, too, that LeBron has earned this. Okay. But a couple things. One, also to this. Like, there are headlines that are giving LeBron James credit for taking less, apparently $2.6 million less on the contract, like he's some sort of freaking hero.
Yeah, right.
No. Like they're going to make another move. This is not Tom Brady taking less to get a better roster, because if that were the case, then what is Bronny James doing on this roster? Look, just forget about the roster spot. What do we get to when the season gets there? When it gets down to minutes, the all-important minutes, when other players need stats to achieve goals to get their next contract, and you have this kid out there that shouldn't be in the league. How does that not create dissension in the locker room?
Oh,
I don't care if you're LeBron James or whoever. I would take the under on the Lakers next season on the over.
Locker room's going to be a mess by January, maybe sooner. Absolute disaster. I'm that's what I'm watching for. How quickly does it just how bad does it go and how quickly does it go bad? And I'll say this, you can't not be a fan of LeBron James' game, right? At worst, he's the second best basketball player of all time. And I'll say that as a dad, man, he's advocating for his kid. He's been a great dad.
Cannot argue. And this is his plan that goes back years and years, because this is 7-8 years ago on the MLB Network, and it's the offseason, and I'm watching a story about Ken Griffey Jr. and how Ken Griffey Jr. played with his dad. And who's the first expert that they go to? Is it somebody from the Mariners? Is it somebody from the Reds? It's LeBron James. I'm like, wait a second, what does LeBron have to do with it? And he's talking about how much he admires this and how he has this dream. Somehow LeBron worked himself right to the forefront of this documentary on Major League Baseball. So this isn't a surprise that it got to this point.
No, and he's got to be over the moon ecstatic that another goal that he has set for himself, he has accomplished. Now, he had to manipulate quite a bit. I have a feeling that his manipulation of the media, and this goes back to that weird ESPN LeBron dynamic that goes on where it's like you're covering things you don't really need to be covering if you're ESPN, but you're manufacturing it partially because it's LeBron. That's a little unsavory. But and you might not agree with a lot of what LeBron stands for, a lot of what he says, but I can't be upset at the guy for being on the surface what looks like an unbelievable dad for Bronny. Like, he's been there as his old man.
But I'm surprised the Lakers are just kind of going along with this, because this season isn't about winning.
It's a little crazy.
The season isn't about winning a championship. It's about LeBron when he looks back and said, hey, I accomplished this, and I played with my son.
And then when you think about what life after basketball looks like for LeBron, like if LeBron makes the jump to media, which who knows what he does, he probably doesn't need to do that. But if he were to, like, is there anything that LeBron can say or do after he's done playing that would make him a more compelling figure to you? There's nothing. Like, when he's done, I'll just be like, well, great career, one of the best ever, if not the best ever. He can go away for a while now.
No, he won't go away. He'll be forefront, and not as a commentator. The NBA for years could have cashed in, meaning expansion. They're the one league that's stuck at 30. Like, what are you waiting for? If you're one of these owners, like, here's Seattle. They have an arena and an owner. Here's oh, that's it. I think they're holding this up. And the second that LeBron says, I'm done as a player, they will announce some phony bidding process for expansion, and LeBron will end up with the franchise in Vegas. And
LeBron will be a governor?
Actually, I can't say owner, right?
Governor LeBron.
Governor LeBron.
Right, that'll be interesting. Are we checking on Wimbledon? Because that's been on this afternoon here in this. Oh, what's that? Jessica Pegula has already been eliminated. Gino, this happened a few days ago. Shocking that a Pegula sports endeavor collapsed down the stretch through a series of unforced errors, because that never happens.
I'd like to know that she's still in the doubles with Coco Gauff. Still alive. Is there a thing that nobody cares about the doubles in any major?
I mean, that's the Francesa, the most Francesa of all Francesas is that she's still
who cares?
Still playing in the doubles. Does that get any airtime ever? Maybe like the morning of a final, you get maybe the final, the doubles final.
I think it's just interesting that, and maybe this isn't true, but you would think that Dad would be supportive and, like, during some downtime, let me go over to Wimbledon, or let me go to the U.S. Open, or let me go.
No sign of Terry?
Not to my knowledge.
At Wimbledon?
Yeah.
Well, I think you've kind of seen how that's telegraphed over the last year or so, right? Basically, since the Players Tribune piece, it feels as if Terry's iced out Jessica.
Or the Kim's kids.
Right.
Yeah, which are his kids too.
They kind of iced out a little bit here.
It seems like after that Players Tribune piece that Jessica put out explaining what happened, that was unforgivable to speak like that out of turn. Just my opinion. If you were tuning in today at the Sports Bar to get my opinion or Danger's opinion on who got snubbed for the Major League Baseball All-Star Game, I'm sorry. Baseball writer, he is on vacation. He's not here today. I'm adding on to the evergreen take here, Danger, just a little added value that All-Star games are outdated. Ratings go in the wrong direction, not just for baseball, but for every sport. But to get worked up as to who from the Orioles didn't get on the team. It really is fake outrage. The most truthful thing I saw in recent years when Seattle cracking forward Oliver Bjorkstrand, told by his head coach, Dave Haxtell, the time they made the All-Star team, you guys read his body language. He didn't want to go. He wanted to go on vacation to San Diego.
Right. Yeah. A lot of these guys want the break. But I do get the sense with, 32 first-time All-Stars between the two leagues? I mean, that's got to be pretty exciting for those young players. Baseball, if they have anything to hang their hat on right now, is that there is a lot of good, young, exciting talent across the league. Every team, it feels like, has at least one guy who you could look at and be like, oh, yeah, that player is fun and exciting. Almost every team.
I should say this because I was thinking, will I watch the Major League Baseball All-Star Game? And chances are no, with one exception. If they start Skeens, start the rookie from the Pirates.
Yeah.
And maybe there's more deserving and you can go on all your stats. No. Put the guy who most people want to watch. That would be the number one overall pick from last year, who is really making the Pirates a fun team. So give me Skeens going head-to-head with Aaron Judge, please, or something like that.
Yeah, no, I want to see that for sure. That would be smart. Probably won't happen, but that would be smart.
Joe Burrow had a take on this, too.
Ooh.
Well, about the All-Star game. So Joe Burrow went on a podcast, was asked about going to 18-game schedule, right? And his take was, well, if that's going to happen, we need to add in a second bye week, which I think that's what we need, right?
Everybody's saying that.
Everybody's saying that, but here's what makes it different. First bye week would come in October, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Second one would come later in the week, and the entire league would shut down. All but one game, the Pro Bowl.
Oh, you have the Pro Bowl during the bye week.
Okay, let me tell you why that would never happen.
This is what Burrow wanted?
This is what Burrow is suggesting would happen. That's a terrible idea. Like, what player in the later part of the season, hey, it's your bye week. Hey, let's go to Cancun, Dominican, or wherever it is. No, we got to go and be in this fake game.
Nobody will. Well, I mean, the game itself is not a game anymore, right? It's flag football, and then it's skills and different. Hey, it's NFC versus AFC and dodgeball or whatever the Pro Bowl games are now. Players, you think they opt out at the end of the season? They will opt out during the season even more. Like, every one of them is injured. Every single player is injured that late in the season, and will take that extra week to rest up over traveling to participate in, I don't know, pickleball? Is that the next thing to enter the Pro Bowl games? Probably.
Probably.
Steve Cornianos is the draft analyst. We're going to break down the Sabres 2024 draft class next on The Fan.
You're listening to the update.
Buffalo Sabres have signed their first-round pick, Constance Helenius, to a 3-year entry-level contract. Good chance he could start next season with the Amherst. Marty Baron and Brian Duff on Sabres Live offering their thoughts.
Consta Elenius has signed his 3-year entry-level contract.
This is wonderful because the kids that presumably will be in Rochester, that he could well start here in North America this year.
We'll get the thoughts of Steve Kornianos, the draft analyst. He joins us next year in the Sports Bar. Rochester Red Wings back on the diamond tomorrow night. They open a series in Worcester. One final in the majors. Mitch Keller of the Pirates picking up win number 10. Pirates over the Mets 8-2. The Yankees begin a series at Tampa Bay tomorrow night. Gene Battaglia, the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan, Rochester.
Neat or on the rocks? It's the Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia on the Sports Leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester.
Well, the world looks a little different than it did last time we spoke, and that includes the roster of the Buffalo Sabres, bolstered through the NHL draft and free agency, series of acquisitions and trades. Focusing specifically on the draft, we bring in the draft analyst, our buddy Steve Kornianos, to talk a little bit about the haul for the Buffalo Sabres. Steve, thanks for giving us some of your time this afternoon. And we know we're about over a week late on recapping the draft. I'm not going to ask you to grade the draft class because we know that the answer to that is incomplete. But let's center in on Consta Helenius, the first round pick of the Buffalo Sabres, and the kind of prospect that the Sabres ended up getting there at pick 14.
They get a potential franchise center, in my opinion. I had him in my top 5. I don't really get too concerned with the size thing. I know that the teams went that route this particular year. It kind of started with Central Scouting's watch list, where you just saw the trend of the subtraction of sub-6 foot forwards and defensemen, and the addition of 6'2" or taller. So we knew that the draft was going to turn out this way. Well, I never really had a problem with the way Helenius played all season. Specifically, the fact that he was an 18-year-old kid playing in a men's league. And I know that we've seen, other prospects play in European men's leagues and not really hit. But what he did with Ukraine was special because he had the highest assist per game ratio of any first-year eligible since Barkov. So that's over a 10-year period. So when you're playing top 6 minutes, you're on a good contending team, you're playing well in the playoffs, the Finnish men's national team is inviting you to play for them at the World Championships. Clearly, this is a special talent. And so the Finns had actually a pretty good group this year, more so than the year before that. And he was the centerpiece. So when I knew he was going to go top 5, but when I saw him slipping, I'm like, this is going to be a Sabres pick, just like Benson the year before, where he presumably fell because of his size. And lo and behold, the kid played a full season in the NHL a year later. So I think it was a great pick, even trading down 3 spots, and he was there and getting the extra pick, the second rounder, and helped them make the move for Malenstein. So it was really good work on day one for Kevin Adams and Jerry Ford and the staff.
Yeah, so making the jump over to here, of course, that is a big jump for an 18-year-old. And still to be determined where he's going to play. Where do you think he'd be better served? Going and playing another year at Liga, or perhaps coming here to Rochester and being here in the AHL next season?
I'm going to be honest with you. The Sabres they brought in some hired guns, some help for this coming season. So I don't know if the kids from Rochester that had really impressive years last year, Rosen and Kulik, Rusek. I mean, some of those kids that then I don't think there's really going to be any room for them this year. I mean, it's going to be really competitive. So because of that, if he shows up to Rochester, I don't know if he's going to be automatically given, let's say, top 6 minutes. So my opinion is you want him to come over to play in the smaller rink to get accustomed to the physicality and speed of the AHL. But I don't think it would be a bad thing if he stayed in Finland another year. Again, I'm just speculating. But history says that either or would be the right thing. With these top talents, wherever they get drafted, wherever they go after they get drafted, it's not going to be like that detrimental. And he might go show up to training camp and impress the Sabres and maybe even push for a job at the NHL level, but I don't think that's going to be the plan for him. So either way, it'll work fine. When they trade Matt Savoy, you could say he automatically jumps in and takes his spot wherever it would have been. It would have been in Rochester, but we don't know exactly where Savoy would have played. Would he have been a second line center, a third line center? So move to wing. We don't know. But either way, I mean, he's the kind of player that'll reward you wherever he goes.
Steve, talk a little bit about that trade, sending Savoy to Edmonton, because we didn't really get a chance to see him. We had a couple of games with him in Rochester, the rest of the time in juniors, and I think a lot of people kind of look at what the Sabres have done here in overhauling their bottom six. Savoy maybe wasn't a part of that plan, and they were able to get some return on that investment, sending Savoy, somebody that maybe they didn't know as much about as they do some of these other prospects.
Well, I think the trade, first of all, makes the Sabres better. I mean, I don't want to say infinitely better, but you're getting basically a solid third-line center for a Stanley Cup finalist, and a good one, a young one who's fast and has size. Of course, I'm talking about McLeod. I think the issue with Savoy was, he's had injury history, and there were just moments where you kind of wanted more. I know that he was almost a 2-point-per-game player in junior this year. But it was his third year, almost fourth year playing in that circuit, and so or playing junior hockey at least. So I think that if you want to consider Kulik a center, if you want to consider Rosen a center, and then Ostlund as well, you have Anton Wahlberg as development. He's coming along. Like the Sabres have plenty of quality prospects at the pivot. So I don't want to say that he was, let's say, the fourth or fifth on the depth chart, but maybe the intent was to draft a center this year to make him somewhat expendable and then make this move for McLeod. So I don't think the Sabres are worse off because of it. I know some people are trying to say that it's in the long run and Sabres are going to regret it. I don't think that's going to be the case because they have premier prospects at practically every position, and they also have young talent at the NHL level who are just scratching the surface. So I think there was a possibility, a good chance, that Savoy would have gotten squeezed out. And you might have seen him playing in a third or fourth line at best. And then if he's not producing, you're like, well, why do we draft him ninth or whatever it was, eighth overall? So I like the trade. This is what you do. You don't just keep prospects and stockpile them and never promote them. I mean, when your team needs to make a change at the NHL level, address a specific need, this is what you do. And I wouldn't rate this farm system any different or any lower after the drafting of Hellenius and the trading of Savoy. And you got Ty Tullio in return as a pretty gritty winger as well, who's not that who's just only in his second AHL season.
Yeah, we're talking to Steve Cornianos. You can read his content at the Draft Analyst. Of course, that wasn't the only pick of the Bills making, and Constant Hellenius. What are your thoughts? Anything in the rest of this draft pop out at you? The second-round pick, Adam Kleber, is going to be at Minnesota Duluth. You have Brody Zeimer, who is another product of the U.S. National Development Team. Any of these other picks, rounds 2 through 7, that you like or don't like here, Steve?
I liked them all. I gave them a pretty high grade. I mean, I assessed it as an above-average draft. The Kleber and Osborne picks, these are two kids that play for good teams. They're mobile. They could play the two-way game. They're good in crease defense. Osborne, I think, is a sneaky good prospect. I think they got good value in him at 108th overall. Zeimer is a kid I love. I mean, if you watch the NTDP this year, he was a difference maker. He's a 200-foot forward from the wing. He could be a playmaker. He could be a finisher. Has leadership qualities. The two defensemen that they drafted, Brunet and Geary, one from Drummondville, the second, respectively, from Michigan State, they played with Sabre prospects, so the Sabres got pretty good looks at them. Geary's an overager, but, you got to figure that the Spartan staff vouching him as well as his teammate Sturback. And then Brunet, he's a big kid who could skate, and he's really good below the dots. The one kid I would keep an eye on is Zelenov. Right? They draft Russians every year. This kid wasn't drafted out of Russia, though. He was drafted out of the Red Bull program that produced J.J. Peterka, and he was one of the most dynamic players in the league. So he's got a little bit more size than Peterka, but he's fast. He could finish. So although the Sabres don't really need wings, they got plenty of them on both the left and right side. It's a home run swing late in the seventh round. And even the same thing with the Lindas kid, the goalie. They've been taking the goalie every year the last few drafts. This kid led the OHL in save percentage, which isn't easy to do as a first-year eligible, no less. And so, he's a kid that you could just basically marinate. And you got him towards the end of the entire draft. So overall, it was a really impressive haul, all things considered. And, trading back and adding extra picks, I'm always a fan of, but also using some of that extra capital to acquire established NHL talent.
Yeah, Steve, I'm not going to hold my breath that Patrick Geary ends up as a pro someday, a 6th-round pick out of Michigan State. But it is noted that he is from Buffalo, and I think there's an overarching theme with what I've kind of seen in the Sabres and how they're constructing this roster. I mean, they want guys who want to be in Buffalo, and that leads me to believe that there are a lot of guys that were on this roster that didn't want to be in Buffalo that are no longer on the team. How much of a disadvantage does that put Kevin Adams at when he's trying to build this roster?
When the kids are young, I don't think it necessarily matters as much because a lot of them are just happy to have the opportunity to play. And when they get to Rochester, they see how important it is to keep up with everybody else, keep up with the pace and speed. And they know that the Sabres are a young team, so that a job is eventually going to come up at some point. So I don't think that matters. As far as like luring in like big name free agents, in a way, I think that works to the Sabres' advantage. So I know this has been a long drought and everyone's getting frustrated with it, but this might work to their advantage in that it prevents them from overspending to bring people in. And we saw a bunch of teams do that this last week, where they had to overspend to bring in notable names, but only 8 teams were in the playoff round. So there's going to be a lot of disappointing teams who spend a lot of money and are saddled with those salaries. So again, I love the Skinner buyout. There's only one bad balloon payment in that range. So they still have cap space right now. So I don't really have a problem with it. And remember when the Sabres were good, when you had the Drury, Briere, Ryan Miller days, they had no problem attracting big names, especially at the deadline or just keeping them. Obviously, what happened thereafter was unfortunate, but they were commanding a lot of money. So I think that, and I keep saying this every year, but I think law of averages says you add those big hitters that they just got, Malenstein, Orby Kubel, Lafferty. It gives the Sabres, makes them tougher to play against. And even a guy like Geary with Michigan State, they were a really tough team to play against. They always had their foot on the gas pedal, physical and really structured defensively. So, yeah, you draft kids locally, that'll work out. But I think that when they show up to the organization, it's a young organization. They know that eventually they'll be given the chance. And, there are kids playing in the AHL right now that are drafted 3-4 years ago. They're still stuck on the third or fourth line. And I don't think that won't be the case with the Sabres organization.
Steve Cornianos, the draft analyst, our guest here, covers not just the draft, the entire league, the NHL. And I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you about the one big move the Sabres made, and that would be the coach. And for us here in Western New York, you felt good if you were a fan, right? Lindy Ruff, he was a player. He was the head coach, the all-time winningest in franchise history, right up there in NHL history. And well, I guess my question is, can it still work here in 2024? What do you think Lindy Ruff here brings as he'll have a 2.0, so to speak, here in Buffalo?
Well, I think he's a very accomplished coach. And, the fact that he was able to get the Devils over the hump, he got scapegoated a little bit because of the injuries and the goaltending. And they always say goaltending is what the difference between a coach staying and a coach leaving. And so I think that if the Devils, let's say, had stability in goal, they wouldn't have had a meltdown last season. I don't think it's anything that he does tactically or strategically that hurts teams. The fact that the Devils were a young team, they won 50-plus games 2 seasons ago, so you can't say that he's an old part of the old guard. He's not. He's going to play veterans over the young guys. That's not true. So he's going to be good with the young guys. I think the most important thing, though, is that all these recent coaches that the Sabres have tried in these last few years weren't entirely experienced. You were taking shots on guys, where they were soccer analytics types or they were, heroes in the organization. This guy is one of the winningest coaches in NHL history. So the problems that the Sabres faced last year was consistency. That you had a great effort one night, a mediocre effort the next, and then a horrible effort. And so they couldn't piece together anything substantial to keep them in the hunt for a wild card spot. I think Ruff by himself is going to be able to prevent that. We saw that with the Devils. The Devils had no business being a borderline 500 team. They had horrible goaltending. They had injuries. And so I think that when the Sabres, with a young team, when they're in that fragile stage, they're losing a couple games. I think a guy like Ruff knows how to communicate with them. And, maybe this is just me being optimistic, but I think it's a good move. They should have gone out and hired a veteran coach, and he's familiar with the area and the organization. And, we'll see how it turns out. We have to entertain the possibility that what he did with the Sabres back in the Hasek era kind of repeats itself, although it would be nice if they had a goalie like Dominic Hasek to make it happen.
Steve, if you're a fan of the Rochester Americans, the name Beck Malenstein sticks in your head because we saw him not this last season, but the season before for Hershey, and he put a hurt on the Amherst. He was a heavy body out there, and I'm curious as to what your notes were on Malenstein as a prospect and what the Sabres are getting here with this addition to their bottom six in the forward group.
Well, I knew he was coming out of the WHL, so I knew that he was going to be a physical wing. He had a lot of skill. I mean, he was a scorer in junior. But he's one of those guys where similar to the kid that won the Cup of Vegas, I'm forgetting his name, Howden, where the big-time scorers, top six types in junior, they go to the minors, and they kind of develop this checking role. The thing with Malenstein, though, is he's pretty quick, and he can hit. And he's got size. So that's why I don't know if they're going to form a kind of a crash rock line with Obi Kubel and Lafferty and Malenstein, but it wouldn't be a bad idea. And so I don't know if he's going to be higher than, let's say, the fourth line, because all the Sabre prospects are leaning more to the skills side. You want to see them getting opportunities, zone starts, and power play, etc. But, he was a noticeable. The Capitals have had really poor performances in the playoffs. He was one of the few guys this past season where he was noticeable, and so I don't know if he's going to necessarily turn the tide by himself. But having that checking line, a physical checking line, is going to make a difference. I think at least 2 or 3 games, maybe even 4 games a season, where you could say we won this game because we were flat and the checking line came out, or the crash line came out, and they played the body and it turned the momentum. And hey, those 6-8 points can make a difference between making the playoffs or not.
Steve, I would say hold the draft every year at the Sphere. It was just for great television, and everybody that we've talked to that went out there thought it was executed perfectly. I guess my question is to you about the draft itself. Which teams do you think did well for themselves in the draft that's now over a week old?
Well, obviously the teams picking, when San Jose probably had the best draft out of anybody, not just because of Celebrini, but what they did thereafter. But Carolina, I have to mention them because they always seem to draft. And this is a competitive, contending team that wins 50 games a season, and they always seem to go out. They don't care about the Russian factor, similar to the Sabres, and they just keep banging out all these fantastic draft picks later in rounds. So I'm always a fan of what Carolina does. I also liked what Calgary did. I mean, Calgary, Craig Conroy never really came out and said that they were rebuilding, but he's been a busy man the last couple of months. And, you add Zane Parekh and Matt Bay-Greed and Andrew Basha. It was a very Sabre-esque draft, like what we saw from the Sabres in 23 and 22 and 21. So I thought that they did a lot of they basically added an insane amount of skill to the pipeline that they really needed.
Steve, love catching up with you this time every year and breaking down what just went down with the NHL draft. Let our listeners know a little bit more about where they can get more of your work, because it's unbelievable.
Oh, thank you. I mean, you could just find me on Substack, thedraftanalyst.substack.com. Tons of free content. Right now I'm doing all my team post-draft assessments, so they're not report cards. I go a little bit more in depth. So you could find, the Sabres has already done, it's up there, so you could find plenty of other draft-related content on there as well.
Steve, keep up the great work. Always appreciate our conversations here. Thanks so much for the time today.
Yeah, likewise. Take care. Thank you.
You got it. Steve Kornianos. He is the draft analyst, sharing some of his thoughts, the Buffalo Sabres 2024 draft class.
Why don't they just put him on the TV coverage? Honestly, that's what's lacking when it comes to the NHL draft. You need like a Kuiper or somebody that can say, boom, 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 give me bullet point.
And do some personality, and with a little bit of flair and personality as well. Yeah, Steve's one of our best. Love that guy. And we're smarter Sabres fans after that conversation. And if you came in late, we'll get that up for you on demand shortly. The free to download Odyssey app, your best source for the sports bar. Just search us out, The Fan Rochester. You can go back and listen to any part of the show that you may have missed for the next 72 hours. So Gino and I back after a little hiatus, a little break where we close up shop for a week, clean up. Every restaurant has to kind of like scrub everything down and get ready for the next wave.
By the way, I'm only through episode 4, so do not spoil the bear. I'm sure you burned through all 10, right?
I did, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not going to spoil anything. Just if you're like me, just the secret to happiness in life is managing expectations.
I'm fully aware that people are saying, "Oh, that wasn't as good." I'm like, well, it's funny. Like, I kind of remember The Sopranos, and like there would be seasons where people would be like, "Oh, that was all they were." Well, not every season's going to be the A+. Oh my God!
Right? Yeah, it's got that kind of vibe to it. Just manage expectations. It's still good. It's still better than most of what you're out there watching, but. Yeah, I'd just say, man, if 1 and 2 were so good that 3, I think, was kind of bound to be somewhat of a letdown. I don't call it a letdown. I just say manage your expectations. But that was just part of what we did with our time off. I mean, I know you were looking for celebrities on the Cape. I
did not see Belichick.
I went to. Well, it's funny you bring him up. I went to not 1 but 2 different graduation parties in my East Hilton neighborhood. Don't say North Greece. I say East Hilton. You got to have that East Side flair. You know my neighborhood. I've talked about them before, right?
Once or twice, yeah.
Tony, Doug, Nikki G, Cuse, Tony, Joey Dryer Sheets, Tom, Mike, Timmy Parmesan, Tony, Richie C, Nikki Eye Drops, Tony, Rob, Frank, Tony, Nikki Signs, Sammy the Bull. There's somebody I'm forgetting. Forgive me, Tony.
And then there's Tony Gazzetta, who says he's going to beep the horn next time he drives by. I'm like, you do that.
Everybody beeps the horn when I'm out working in the yard. Hey! Cuse, this guy, he'll actually snap a picture to share with our text group. Hey, look who's out in the yard today. Like, that's news. You mentioned Belichick.
You're a bunch of hens. That's what you are.
Unbelievable. These guys are unbelievable. I love them all. You mentioned Belichick. I got to share, and happy hour is next. I got to share the belief that we have, the conclusion that we have come to about Bill Belichick and his current relationship with a 24-year-old hairdresser.
48-year gap between the two.
Right. And there's a lot of reasons behind why these two may be together. We can discuss all of that. But I think there is one singular reason that we unearthed, that we came to the conclusion that has to be why this is working. Belichick with a 24-year-old, just, tooling around Nantucket.
I can't think of any reason why it would work, so I'm curious.
We'll get to that. We'll get to a round of shots. And we'll get to your calls if you want to pull up a stool. We're back next at 866-4FAN, 585-866-4326.
KF Rochester, the sports leader. 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan, Rochester. An Odyssey sports station. The Fan, Rochester. Sports update.
Buffalo Sabres have signed their first-round pick, Consta Helenius, to a 3-year entry-level contract. Good chance he could start the season here in Rochester. Sabres commentator Mark Baran offering his thoughts on the Matt Savoy, Ryan McLeod trade.
But I think for the Sabres, Savoy had probably dropped to third, maybe fourth, maybe even fifth in the way they saw him as in their prospect pool. So making that trade for a third-line center felt like it was the right currency and the right moment to do it.
To baseball, where the Pirates win again over the Mets, this time 8-2. Mitch Keller with win number 10 on the season. Cardinals are up on the Nationals 2-0 in the fourth. The Yankees begin a series tomorrow night down in Tampa Bay. Red Wings back on the diamond tomorrow night, opening a series in Worcester. Sports brought to you by GetMyPerks.com. Get half off today to Fairfield's Bar and Grill. Gene Battaglia, the sports leader. The Fan, Rochester.
The Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia.
USA men's basketball group with Puerto Rico, South Sudan, and Serbia for the Paris games that begin later this month.
The news cycle for the NFL is starting to perk up again.
Mike Danger.
Of course, we're just over 2 weeks away from our Super Bowl, which is Buffalo Bills training camp.
Cannot wait. We'll be out there at Fisher bringing you everything.
Gene Battaglia.
What would be like some of the bigger storylines for camp that maybe we haven't asked you yet? Whether that be the offensive line or, hey, who's going to be your strong safety and your free safety here? There's a lot of questions here.
Dan Hurley officially has that new contract at UConn after flirting with the Lakers earlier this summer.
Tucker! We both saw the Savannah Bananas this weekend.
Yes.
And I was surprised how much I enjoyed it.
Consta Helenius has signed his 3-year entry-level contract.
We did not mention Savoy and Ryan McLeod.
Yes, we're back from vacation. It's good to be back.
It is the 8th, but
What does the world look like on July 8th?
What? Yeah, right.
95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan, Rochester.
Welcome to Happy Hour. Thanks for joining us in the Sports Bar. We appreciate you tuning in at 95.7 FM, AM 950. Watching the Sports Bar is easy. Just go to our YouTube channel at The Fan Rochester or catch our stream on Twitch at twitch.tv/The Fan Rochester. We sound our best in the free-to-download Odyssey app or on your smart device when you ask it to play 95.7 The Fan. I'm Mike Danger. That's Gene Battaglia.
Back and ready to go, buddy.
Back.
We
Gene,
are back.
Just rolling with the savage tan. I mean, Gene, you got a little bit of sun, looking good.
Did not burn myself.
SPF 50, I'm assuming.
Yeah, baseball cap. Kind of look like a dad there, walking around. So.
You're owning it. Got to do it. And, yes, we are fresh from a little time off as we're now just over 2 weeks away from Buffalo Bills training camp. We're looking forward to that. But I teased this going into the break, and it's something that I wanted to make sure we brought up because part of my time off was spent with friends and family. And the friends part of it is a lot of the guys that are in my neighborhood. You've heard me talk about the guys in my neighborhood. They're the best group of sons of bitches you'll ever meet. These guys are all characters, all of them.
And by the way, all in the same boat. You all have kids. You all are in the same neighborhood.
Yeah, we all kind of have been in the same neighborhood for like 20 years. We've watched each other's kids grow up, and we've got graduation parties to go. It's graduation party season. We went to not one but two different graduation parties over the course of the last few days. And one of the graduation parties were by the way, you and I have been invited once again to watch the neighborhood bocce team in action at the Italian American Center.
When is that?
They're in second place now. I don't know if you know this or not, but they're competing. They've gotten better.
Only if I can do like the play-by-play.
I think you and I have to do play-by-play. We get Spectrum or CW to pick up some bocce, some local bocce that we could do some play-by-play for.
At the very least, Sunday morning, instead of the latest soccer scores from Italy, how about the latest botch scores there from the Italian American Club?
Botch. Inevitably, we get talking about sports, and you mentioned Bill Belichick earlier. You were on Cape Cod. Belichick, spends his offseason in Nantucket.
Nantucket. Did not go over to Nantucket. Did not see Bill Belichick.
But Belichick did come up in conversation. We were all kind of, as many have been, a little stunned, a little shocked. Bill Belichick's dating a 24-year-old hairdresser? What's the story with that? Now, we originally talked about this a couple of weeks ago when this became news, and And look, I'm not going to make a big deal out of what Bill Belichick does with his spare time or who he hangs out with. But if you view this through the lens of her, what's her name? Do we know?
Jordan.
24-year-old hairdresser.
24, went to Bridgewater State. You know, she's got some education there. Her name is Jordan Hudson.
Okay. So Jordan Hudson, if you view it through the lens of Jordan Hudson, and this isn't exclusive to Jordan Hudson. This, I think, is a wider issue with young women in terms of trying to find somebody suitable to date or settle down with. You'll hear this complaint. There are no guys out there. I hear it firsthand from my daughter. There's no guys out there. You've lived your life, your entire life, viewing everything through the lens of social media where only the best is put out there. Only the best version of everything is put out there.
So this is Jordan Hudson, 24-year-old, raised in the social media age.
Sure. And it's harder and harder for guys to show women that they actually are excellent, that they can be good at something, or that they're, good to their family, or they can provide. They can do more than just play video games in their mom's basement, right? There's less people going out to bars and clubs. There's less people going out to church. There's less social opportunities in person. So really, you're reduced to social media and dating apps. And when you inevitably follow through on that, what you end up with is disappointment because it's never what you think it's going to be. It's always the best picture of somebody, and then you meet them in person like, kind of a mutant. I don't really know what that profile picture was, but that's not you. Or they say something, and then you're like, that's not really what you are either. You're not really in finance. You're just kind of trading crypto in your mom's basement. It's not really the same thing. And so there's this, it's not an unrealistic expectation for a woman to find somebody who's stable, who's got their stuff together. It's just harder to find.
Right, but I get all that. It doesn't explain 48 years of difference, okay? There's plenty of divorced dads in their 40s that I'm sure would fit a little bit more into the bracket.
Now, I might be wrong, but I think before her relationship with Belichick, she was with another
64-year-old guy who was an executive, and I think it's funny that he was an executive of a bunch of retirement homes on Cape Cod.
Okay. Well, look, I guess what I'm saying is if they're happy together, then who am I to judge? Good for them and good for her, because if all she's looking for is somebody with stability or somebody who is set up financially, it sounds like in both of these instances, she found that. But it doesn't explain necessarily what exactly drew her to Bill Belichick. But fear not. We have a theory in our neighborhood, and we came up with this theory at the graduation party of one of my neighbor's daughters. We have come to the conclusion that the reason why Belichick was able to pull a 24-year-old hairdresser is not because he's a Hall of Fame coach, not because he's established and has all this money. There's got to be more to it. And we have concluded that Bill Belichick must be the absolute best at, how do I say this without being crass? I know you don't want me to be crass. He's really good at delivering special treatment. You catch my drift? He's really good at exploring no man's land. He's got to be the best, the greatest of all time. He might be the greatest head coach of all time. He might also be the best at delivering special treatment, at doing the things that not every man wants to do. I don't know a lot of pro athletes that would do that. I don't.
Your theory fits because what is the endurance athletically of any man in his 70s?
It's not, short of medical aid. No. You need a prescription, right?
Right.
And maybe that's part of it. Maybe that's part of it. Or if it's not, well, there's always something you can do. You can do that. And if you can do that better than some 24-year-old finance bro,
Doesn't know how to do that.
doesn't know what he's doing. Doesn't know what he's doing. He might say, I'm going to do the alphabet. Not good enough, pal. You can't just do the alphabet down there. You have to know what you're doing. There's some technique. You need a roadmap. Okay, you got to get after it. I'm saying Belichick's going in fatigues. He's wearing camo. He's got his... He looks like Arnold Schwarzenegger in The Predator with the face paint on, and he's going in the jungle, baby, with the machete and everything. And she can't say no. She's smitten. That's why Belichick is with a 24-year-old. That's what we came to That's our conclusion.
The conclusion.
That's East Hilton's contribution to the sports bar on our first day back. I told you at the start of the show, lower your expectations today. We got to kick the rust off a little bit.
I'm on the family vacation, and you're bringing me into this conversation with the neighborhood Goombas, offering the theory.
Oh, we're all talking about it. I'm like, they're like, what do you think Gene will say? I think Gene will be on board. I think Gene understands.
What did I text back to?
It checks out.
Checks out.
Respect the take. It can't be anything other than he is elite at going downtown. Did I say it? I'm trying not to be crass.
No, you went, yeah.
You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, you around the topic, you nibbled all around.
Okay, I nibbled all around it. All right, very good. All right.
Again, July 8th. Yay, summer. Woo!
Well,
to the sports bar.
I mean, if it wasn't that, Gino, then I'd be here talking about the U.S.'s struggles in the Copa Americana or the Euro tournament that gets underway again with the semifinals tomorrow.
What's wrong with the Yankees?
What's wrong with the Yankees in a 162-game season? Like, there are going to be ups and downs. Yes, you're probably going to be okay. But, yeah, that's what we came up with. And, look at this. Everybody's already – we got reaction already. The fan Rochester.
Is this beyond the neighborhood?
Yeah, our regulars chiming in. We're at the fan Rochester on X. I have to say, Danger, you're leaving me with a lot of mental images that make me want to bleach out my eyes. And then it's the gif of Homer dousing his eyes in bleach.
Look, Chris, I agree with you on that, buddy.
Greg went from sports radio to Triple X Sports real quick.
No, it did not.
No, it did not.
No, your mind went there.
Greg, I can't help where your mind goes, okay? We are FCC compliant. And dare I say, most of the time, we're family friendly. Most of the time. So I'm not saying that it's because he's financially stable. I'm not saying it's because he used to coach the New England Patriots and he has all those rings. I'm saying it's because he's really, really good at that.
You're led to that conclusion because what do they talk about? What possibly can you talk about somebody that's 48 years younger than you or older than you?
There was a whole episode of The Sopranos about this. Remember that?
Yeah.
Where Uncle June got really, really mad because she was talking tales out of school, and word got around, and they're like, "You can't do that. Why you do it?" Like they crushed him for it. I'm saying he'll do the dirty work that others won't do. He'll put in the time, the effort, the energy, the hours into doing things that other guys won't do. She is satisfied. You have nothing to worry about. Those two are going to be happy for a long time.
Look, you may not like Coach Belichick, but he can teach you some things. If you're a younger guy.
Right.
He can teach you some things.
Yes.
That woman should be on the market right now. Not with old man Bill Belichick.
Yeah, but at this point, now that you've been with the greatest of all time, can you really go back to the guy who's just finishing college and looking at prospects of what his career could be? No, she's not going back. And beyond all that, some guy doesn't know what he's doing down there? Doesn't know? Has no idea?
Down there, you're talking about Nantucket.
Right. That's right. Nantucket. Did we just gloss that area as Nantucket? I think we did. Henceforth, Nantucket will be known as that area. That area is going to Nantucket.
Look, if you've ever been to Nantucket, it's very exclusive, Dane.
I know it is. It is a very
it's difficult to get to. Okay,
it's hard to find.
Yes,
I hear it's hard to find, but Bill Belichick has no problem finding it. He spends a lot of time in Nantucket.
Although Nantucket is seasonal, right? Sometimes the sun is out. Sometimes it's winter.
Well, I have a feeling during football season, Nantucket might be a little harder to find for Bill Belichick. Other things might occupy his time during football season, but at least now, finding Nantucket has been very easy for Bill Belichick, and she is reaping the rewards.
Let's put this in my terms. I don't want to lose this bet to you, dude. I do not want to lose the bet. Danger and I bet a box of wine, and this was back when Belichick got shut out of the coaching cycle, and I said, no, he's going to be back in the league. And look at you. You're smiling like that Cheshire cat over there, knowing that he is enjoying not the good life, the great life, the life he could never even imagine.
Yeah.
You're not going back now.
Why would you?
I should just come in and give the box
Why
to you
would
right
you?
now.
If you're Bill Belichick, you're going to show up. You've already shown that, a McAfee or the draft or whatever. Okay, media's, you got it. You're natural. You can do it. He'll be on the Manning cast this year. And there'll be moments this year where we're like, wow, did you see what Belichick said on the Manning cast? That was really good. That was thoughtful. That was insightful. That was an angle that we hadn't thought of. He's going to be great. And at that point, they're going to be like, why would you go back? Jerry Jones could show up and be like, here, I'm backing up the Brinks trick. He's like, why? I'm good. I got a 24-year-old hairdresser who is satisfied. I'm good. You don't need to worry about me. I'm not coaching again.
You think she's still working as a hairdresser?
Yeah.
No.
No, it's, like a little side hustle.
Yeah.
Just got some time at night, maybe on the weekend, friends and family, get a little haircut. Sure. Is that how they met? Was she his hairdresser?
Apparently they were on some flight together. And, of course, as sometimes happens, he's in one aisle seat, she's in the next aisle seat, and one of the two started chatting one another up.
Okay. Wow, fairy tale.
But is that what led to him, dumping Linda?
Now you have to school me. Linda was his girlfriend.
That was the girlfriend.
How many years?
Lots of years. Linda Holiday. Over a decade.
So, and she was older. She was clearly not in her 20s.
No, I would say ballpark 55.
More realistic.
Right. Like you would think that would fit the bracket there.
Yeah. Not if you're the greatest of all time. You have high aspirations.
Well, it's funny. You read that Patriot book, the Wickersham book, and a lot of the focus on that is Tom Brady's quest for greatness, and by doing so, he's trying to push the envelope. How much longer can I play? 42, 45. Can I keep this going? Belichick's doing it in reverse. I need younger.
Yeah. Uh-huh. So that was our big takeaway from our time off. I know you had some other things that happened to you while you were on the Cape.
How do I follow that by talking about the Cape Cod Baseball League? That's
that. The Cape Cod Baseball League. Gino, slow down. You got rowdy this vacation. The Cape Cod Baseball League?
Come on.
What's the baseball league that I see on Hulu? Is that the Northwoods League? It's like all the teams in Wisconsin and Minnesota and
that is some independent pro ball league.
It's like all the college kids play.
Well, these are freshmen and sophomores in college who play in the Cape Cod League, which I'm just wondering how much more this is going to, because in NIL, these kids aren't getting paid, and you don't pay admission. It's free, and it's a bunch of high school parks.
What's fun about it is the scores. Inevitably, you'll go to these independent leagues, and you'll see it's 18-5.
Yep.
But then the final score will be 21-19. They're football scores. It's just foolishness.
We 13-4 was the game we went to.
There you go. Pete, giving you some hope here, Gino, one of our regulars on X. Beating Shula is Bill Belichick's focus. I'm with Gene Battaglia. Jerry calls him to coach the Cowboys next year. Keep the bet. I hate to break it to you, Peter. Belichick's not getting Shula's record. Andy Reid is getting Shula's record. It's more attainable for Reed with Patrick Mahomes than it is with Belichick and whatever he inherits if he goes to Dallas, which, why would you take that job now? You have to, what do you have? You've got a bunch of guys that are going to be disgruntled and angry that they're not signed to their long-term deals.
You bring in Belichick to clean house, basically.
Right.
That's like, you want the Belichick way? Okay. Sorry, Dak. Sorry, CD. Everybody out.
Belichick wants to rebuild. He's already shown he can't do that. I don't know, Peter.
But what the girlfriend coos up to him like, Dallas. I don't know. These are the factors that you got to consider.
I like the Lush Pinot Noir that they sell. Dark purple box. That's my box. That's my go-to.
You're a son of a bitch. You know that? I do not like. You realize it's no big deal when, and it's rare. I gotta say, like in terms of like us betting, normally it's me paying up, and Sandy doesn't listen to the show. Your wife, my wife does. She's not gonna be happy that if I gotta go home and explain why I gotta go deliver.
It's fine. You know, if you need me to talk to the executive producer, say, look, it's okay. You know, it's a box of wine. And, you know, chances are I'll probably, you know, reciprocate for the holidays. Happy
As
holidays.
You did last year.
Have a box of wine.
Box of rosé.
Yeah, for you guys to share. Yeah, look, it's all good. It's all fun. You know, I do like, though, that there have been moments in sports bar history where me, the guy that doesn't know as much sports as you do, the guy that'll come in here and be like, yeah, listen, Gino, that Carson Wentz situation in Philadelphia, that's terrible. That's not going well, and he's going to be dealt. And everybody thought I was nuts. Yeah, the dead cap hit. Yeah, no way. Can't happen. No, he's gone. And he was gone. Catalana thought I was crazy on that one.
Right.
He's the icon.
He's Mr. Philly.
That's right. So every now and then, I'll get one right. And there was another one. I can't remember what the other one was.
Well, I was feeling really confident about the Belichick one. Now I'm not feeling. I'm not going to pay up though. I'm going to.
No, yeah, you have to wait this out. Yeah. That's fair. Yeah, and look, rest easy knowing that the guys in my neighborhood, we're just solving all the world's problems. We're solving all these mysteries.
How do you have these conversations? Because generally speaking, there are different age groups at a graduation party. Are you like in somebody's garage, with the guys around?
So I'll paint a picture.
Yeah.
We had a good time, and Cuse, our host, was fantastic. Great food.
Great dude.
We love Cuse. And he's got the screened-in garage. So, yeah, we were, spent some time there. The Sunday night was the night of his graduation. Not this last Sunday, the Sunday before. It was cold, like really cold. Nobody wanted to be outside because it was cold. And then one of the neighbors, Doug, we started talking about bourbon, as guys do. And I shared my revelation on infinity bottles. And he's like, dude, I've got 2. Do you want to try one? I'm like, yes. I go over to Doug's house. Dude's got a still. He's got a whole thing. I walked into his basement. I thought I was walking into Eisenberg's place. I'm like, what else you got going on down here? It's fantastic. Great collection.
Okay. Time out for the audience.
Yes.
Infinity bottle. Mike Danger, what is an infinity bottle?
All right. So, look, I know there are a lot of people listening who are bigger bourbon aficionados and whiskey aficionados than I am. So you're probably laughing at the thought of me saying, wow, this is a new thing. I don't think it's a new thing. I think it's been around a while. But when I first heard of it, I'm like, that's unbelievable. I'm mad at myself for not having heard of this sooner. An infinity bottle is just a collection of your favorite bourbons and whiskeys blended in a bottle that is special to you. So I have started my own infinity bottle. And my neighbor Doug, he's like, oh yeah, he pulls up an app that shows exactly what he has in his infinity bottle and how much he's put into his infinity bottle and his entire collection of whiskeys all within this app. I'm like, well, I guess I need to step my game up. I'm not there yet. So all an infinity bottle is a blend of your favorite whiskeys combined in a bottle that is meaningful to you. And you let it sit and age and blend and try it, and it's usually fantastic. It's usually delicious because it's a combination of all your favorite whiskeys. And Doug was kind enough to share some of his infinity bottle with me, and along with some other things, and actually tried some of his homemade spirits as well, Gino.
Wow. Yeah.
And to answer your question, when that starts happening, then all bets are off. And we were all just sitting around inside the garage, all the neighborhood guys.
Yeah.
And inevitably, the conversation came around to Belichick. We solved this mystery for everybody. You're welcome. Now we know. Now everybody knows why Belichick is with a 24-year-old hairdresser. Listen,
Nantucket.
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 He knows his way around Nantucket. That is why. We got to get to a round of shots next.
Don't know how we follow that up, but we have Danny Hurley in the news. The Dallas Stars doing something interesting. I'm sure they're going to excite their fan base. Former NL Rookie of the Year going to jail here. There is a team in Major League Baseball who's going to be down their ace for a little bit. And the story, if you're a New York Giant fan, how do you feel about Malik Neighbors? What he pulled off. Okay, you haven't heard?
No. Okay, we'll get to that and more next. A round of shots. And don't forget about last call if you want to have the final word in the sports bar. Our lines are open at 585-866-4FAN, 866-4326.
You're listening to the Sports Bar with Danger and Sports Update.
Buffalo Sabres have signed their first-round pick, Consta Helenius. He gets a 3-year entry-level contract. Good chance he could start next season here in Rochester. Marty Baron and Brian Duff offering their thoughts.
Consta Helenius has signed his 3-year entry-level contract.
This is wonderful because the kids that presumably will be in Rochester, that he could well start here in North America this year.
To the Diamond, Mitch Keller of the Pirates. Win number 10 he picks up today. The Pirates over the Mets 8-2. Cardinals are up on the Nationals 2-0 there in the 6th. Yankees off tonight. They begin a series in Tampa Bay tomorrow night. Rochester Red Wings back on the Diamond tomorrow night as well. They're opening a series in Worcester. Sports brought to you by GetMyPerks.com. Get half off the Fairfields Bar and Grill. Gene Battaglia on the Sports Leader, the Fan Rochester.
If you want pure, unfiltered, unadulterated sports, you've come to the right place. 95.7 FM, The Fan, Rochester.
I guess it worked out okay for Dan Hurley at UConn, eh?
You knew he was going to get more money, right? 6 years, $50 million. That's what he's getting in his new deal with the Huskies. Just last year, he signed a 6-year, $31 million deal. Do the math. The extra $19 million, according to the school, did not come out of their budget. We're not costing taxpayers, but rather this comes from donors. Yeah, the ding is for a lie if you're new to the show. It is less than the $70 million that Danny Hurley was offered to become the next head coach of the Lakers, which, of course, he turned down.
$70 million to say, I'm not drafting Bronny. And taking, so basically, yeah, this all checks out. This is good for him. It's good for college basketball.
He played this perfectly.
Yeah.
Said, hey, do you want me? Oh, I've got this other out. Yeah.
You know who's happy more than anybody? Mrs. Hurley. Mrs. Hurley is happy. Not because Dan knows his way around Nantucket, but because Dan knows how to negotiate a deal.
Here's something different. The Dallas Stars have dumped their local Bally's affiliate. That's not anything newsworthy, but this coming season, the Stars are going to stream their games for free.
Really?
Victory Plus is a platform that is 100% ad-supported. The catch here being the only way you can watch the Dallas Stars hockey for free is if you live in the Dallas Metroplex.
Yeah, I get so angry and agitated when you want to watch something and you can't watch it because of a blackout.
Right.
You know, like there's nothing like I'm not really excited to watch a last place team, but when the Cubs are playing a team that like, oh, that's an interesting matchup, let me check that out. Or if I've got a little action on it, and inevitably it's always blacked out because Marquee Network, like, why? What are we doing? Like,
Give the content. Let people watch.
Right. And this is something that if you're an NHL team, you hear that they're giving it away for free, that's got to ruffle some feathers, doesn't it?
I would think, yeah. For example, MSG, they have their direct-to-consumer. You can buy the Sabres for I don't know how much it is, but I know it's hundreds of dollars if you want to buy the season. So I don't think we're getting it for free here. That would be nice, but that's not happening.
Yeah.
I love this quote. My intention wasn't to break my hand. Those are the words from Cubs reliever Colton Brewer, who punched a dugout wall following a subpar performance. Indeed, Brewer did break his hand. It's his non-throwing hand, but you still need that nonetheless. He goes on the 60-day IL. He's not going to be missed. 20 innings this season, 5.66 ERA. The Cubs, 7 games below 500. They are in danger in last place, as you mentioned. They open a series in Baltimore tomorrow night.
Yeah, not a lot to be encouraged about. Although the gap in the Central isn't as wide as it is in some of the other divisions, but they're a bad team, man. They're just inconsistent.
Former L.A. Dodgers outfielder Raul Mondesi has been sentenced to 6 years and 9 months in jail. This in the Dominican Republic. Mondesi embezzled $5 million during his time as the mayor of San Cristobal. This between 2010 and 2016. Mondesi was the NL Rookie of the Year in 1994.
Raul Mondesi's a good one. For our Baltimore accent bracket, we got to put a pin in this one. My buddy sent me one yesterday, and I can't believe we forgot about this one. But this might be an all-timer. Top 10, at least. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Benito Santiago.
The double O.
Yeah. Benito Santiago. That's a PJ Glasser exclusive. That's a Baltimore accent bracket contender for March.
See, if we laid that on PJ, would he know that name?
Benito Santiago. When was he? Was he 90? He was in the 90s.
He was a 90s catcher for the Padres, right? Yeah.
Would he know? God, he's 59 years old. Benito Santiago is 59 years old. No, he's older.
No, I'm just saying I think that's out of the range.
Oh, you say PJ doesn't know?
PJ doesn't know Benito Santiago.
Benito Santiago, home.
Speaking of those Padres, not good news. Pitcher Yu Darvish has gone on the restricted list. It's something personal, which means we don't know. There is no timetable for his return.
You know, everybody that we talk to about Major League Baseball, we all ask them the question, like, which team that isn't in contention right now could be a team that rises up, surprises us, gets in the postseason, and makes a run like we saw last year with Texas and Arizona. And inevitably, everybody always says the Padres. And I hear stories like this, and I keep asking myself, like, why? Why the Padres? Like, are we that sure that the Padres are that team that could find a way into the postseason and make a run?
When they spark, as they did this past weekend, they're a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But still 500-ish team. There's nothing illegal about going to a gentleman's club. It's perfectly fine to tip the entertainers. But
it's more than fine. I think it's encouraged.
Right. That's kind of what you have to do.
Yeah.
But how do you think Giants fans feel about this? New York Giant fans. First-round pick and presumptive wide receiver 1, Malik Neighbors, seen with a huge stack of cash, reportedly thousands of dollars, tossing around, having fun. This happened with him and rapper YNH Primetime. Hit up a club called Area 29.
Hey, everybody! Welcome to Area 29. Looks like we got the first rounder in the house tonight. There's Malik Neighbors with a stack of woods, making it rain in the champagne room. No sex in the champagne room. Don't forget, Cinnamon is on stage 3. Tip your bar staff.
Did you see the stack of cash, though? He's walking in, and it looks like the Scrooge McDuck character, you know, ready to throw it around.
I mean, this is the dangers of the offseason, right? Like, you'd much rather know that your first-round draft pick has his nose in a playbook and working out, eating right, preparing for the rigors of his first season in the NFL. Nope, not with the Giants. Neighbors out there making it rain. And, again, nothing illegal about it. You can go to the strip club all you want. That's totally fine. And it is encouraged to take care of those who take care of you at Area 29.
You say you've never done that, but to say take care of those who take care of you.
Yeah. You got to take care. Sorry.
Finally, the headlines, I'll admit, a little clickbaity. Former Patriots head coach Bill Belichick and the new 24-year-old girlfriend Jordan Hudson were wearing matching rings. What does this mean?
Well, whoa.
We've seen these things. The rings were actually fitness bands. The bigger picture is they were biking around the island. The bigger picture is this. They're still going strong, having spent the entire 4th of July week on Nantucket, not bothered by people taking pictures.
No, as we discovered and as we have confirmed, Bill Belichick knows his way around Nantucket. Matching rings. Let's everybody slow down. He was with his ex-girlfriend for how many years? Never put a ring on it.
No.
There will be no wedding. There will be no ring. There will be no ceremony. Like, this is what this is. This will be this.
This will be this until she's like the Marissa Tomei character, like banging her heel, saying my o'clock.
We don't know. We don't know if that's what she's about. We don't know if that's what she wants. I mean, look, a lot of younger people in relationships now don't want kids. Terrified of the notion of having kids. Most of the time it's for financial reasons because everybody knows how expensive it is to have kid or kids. But, yeah, she might not be about that. She might just be about being satisfied with a guy who knows his way around Nantucket, Gene. Good for them. Happy for him. In case you're just joining us, aside from the Nantucket story, it's fall. According to my daughter, she's made the proclamation. Last firework blows up, and fall has begun. So we can start talking about football anytime you want now, Gino. Because
Okay.
fall is here. And the take actually checks out. We've always said that the 4th of July is when you really, really start thinking about football. Fantasy football.
Right.
So we're in fall mode.
I'm going to challenge your daughter. Which it was Leah on this, right?
Yeah.
Okay, Leah, is it really fall, or you just don't have a benchmark to look forward to until the fall?
Oh, she's got plenty to look forward to. She got a lot on the books here coming up. I think it's a heat thing. I think she doesn't like the heat.
It's 82 degrees. It's not fall.
Yeah, it's 82 degrees, but she wants to wear her comfy hoodie sweatshirt, which doesn't really go when you step outside. You feel like you're going to die. It's the hottest fall I've ever lived through, Gene. I was dying out there on Saturday. Oh. There you have a round of shots in the sports bar. We come back to close up shop next with Last Call. You can join us at 866-4326, 585-866-4FAN.
FAN 866-432-6. The Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia on the Sports Leader 95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester.
PJ Glasser, one of our regulars, joins us most weeks, shares his winners. Baltimore guy. He was the guy that we had for our Baltimore accent bracket back in March. Who won, by the way? It was Apollo Anton Ono, right? It was absolutely former Olympian Apollo Anton Ono. I just sent him the Benito Santiago, and he rifled back, Paulo Banchero.
How did we not put Banchero?
Yeah.
Number 1 overall pick. How did we miss that?
Oversight.
Yeah.
Oh, don't worry. The bracket will be here again soon. Back in March with another Baltimore accent bracket. Fun show this afternoon. Just getting caught up. Just getting our feet underneath us again. Our legs underneath us again after a little hiatus. Gino's rocking the Savage tan from Cape Cod. We had a great conversation catching up with Joe Yurden of Bleacher Report and Steve Cornianos, the draft analyst. What did the world look like, or how did the world change from the last time we were on the air? This Sabres look like a different team, especially in their bottom 6 of their forward group. So we spent some time diving into that and what it might mean for the upcoming season. And I get it. I know. Hockey's not for everybody, and the Sabres aren't fun because they're not winning. But who knows? Maybe this is, they can't stumble out of the gate, right?
Oh, they can. I don't think we pay attention to hockey. There are so many people
until football's over.
Right. And if you look at the standings and be like, oh, and it's another same old team.
Yeah.
Then you're not going to get bought in.
The apathy will set in
sooner
than normal. But fairly positive reviews and optimistic viewpoints from Steve Cornianos and Joe Yurden, both men who joined us earlier this afternoon, and both conversations available wherever you get your podcasts. You can find the Sports Bar in the free-to-download Odyssey app, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you pod. And also, if you missed any of the show, you can go back and listen with Rewind in the free-to-download Odyssey app. Like and follow us while you're there. Do the same on our Facebook page. Not only our Facebook page, our YouTube channel at The Fan Rochester. And appreciate checking out the stream as well on Twitch. Twitch.tv/The Fan Rochester.
If you'd like to be a guest on the show, give us a call tomorrow.
That's funny. Maybe we should open it up to the regulars tomorrow. Hey, if you're a regular of the Sports Bar and you want to sit in for a segment, just chew the fat. We don't have to talk about sports.
There's Chris in South Central Kentucky.
How's life, buddy?
What's going on? What do you think of these Buffalo Bills?
We get Pete the pollster to talk about the New York Jets upcoming season. Yeah. We'd love to chat with you tomorrow.
Here's our buddy Greg to talk about the Yankees. Yes. No, we'll figure this out as danger. Again, I'm just coming back. Still, I feel like I have sand everywhere.
Sand gets everywhere.
It gets everywhere.
It gets everywhere. Yeah, I don't know that there's a life hack to keep the sand from getting everywhere. It gets everywhere. So Gene's still got sand on the brain. I think I maybe spent a little too much time in the sun as well over the last week. So I told you at the beginning of the show, keep the expectations in check. We're kicking off the rust, getting back into it, all with the knowledge, and we rest easy at night knowing that we are just over 2 weeks away from training camp. Be here before we know it.
Yeah, you're not kidding.
JR Sport Brief is on the way next. Have a great night. Thanks for listening to the Sports Bar. We will be back again tomorrow afternoon starting at 3.
It's that time again.